to connect with every creative writer in the world. But I need your help. The world is constantly changing, which is why it's our duty. No, it's our responsibility to inspire creativity. My creative writing tips, tricks, and strategies are gonna help you become a better writer, so that way you can beat procrastination. Join me on this journey to unite the creative writing industry. And let's inspire creativity in the world together. What does creative writing mean to you? Welcome, creative writers. If you like live stories, critiques, readings, and maybe a growing writing community, or perhaps you're just procrastinating on your next novel, then you're going to want to stick around because we got some great submissions for the story and critique show, and I am stoked. I have quite a number of live submissions. I'm your host, Kaufman, and we are going to be getting right into it. I already see we have all of our writing regulars. Bethany, welcome to the stream. Eli, glad you're here. Glide, what's up, my man? Chanello, glad to see you in here. Welcome, welcome. Atomic, my friend. We will have our Atomic Elf playlist in just a little bit. And Zach, what is up? Welcome. And Lewis, I am glad and stoked to see all you guys here. I absolutely love it. We have some absolutely fun stories set up for today. So I'm eager to get into all of it. And by the way, if you're watching on the replay, I got you covered. Once the stream ends, time codes will be added to the stream so you can hop to the part of the video that brings you the most value. And especially if you submitted a story that I read through today, you can actually just then hop to that part of the video. And that way you can listen back to it, or then you can drop comments if there's anything that you didn't fully absorb or you want to know more on. Excellent. Wonderful. What's up, John? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll give you 2.5 welcomes today. And by the way, so I'm trying something completely brand new today. So as I'm developing and I'm setting up a community option outside of the live stream, I'm currently developing it. I wanted to try something fun today. So for all of you who are here in the community, I'm going to be doing a quote of the day game. So what this means, throughout the entire stream, I know there's so many of you who are going to be commenting, whether that's on stories or talking with each other. I'm going to be paying attention to the comments and the chat feed throughout the stream. At the end of the stream, whatever, I'm going to pick a quote that I felt either resonated or was clever or had some type of character building, world building, or some type of ideology that stands out to me. And at the end of the stream, I will nominate that as the quote of the day. Once I finish setting up the community option outside of the Kaufman's Corner YouTube channel, I'll create a quote of the day leaderboards, because what better thing for us to practice our writing, even if it's just in a single message, even if it's just a single sentence, what better way to practice? So I'm going to be testing this out today. So make sure that you are dropping comments left and right. Hopefully comments of great value. Hopefully comments that help elevate, inspire others, or maybe they just make the community laugh. So we'll see. I will bring that up and I will announce the winner at the end of the stream. All right, beautiful. And what do we got first? So we're going to hop right into it. We got our live story readings and critiques. Our first story of the day, let me throw it up on deck. Stephanie, I got your Redfire excerpt. Stephanie, I got Redfire excerpt. I believe we are hopping into chapter 2. So I got you queued on deck, my friend. And while I'm queuing that up, let's review. So what are the submission guidelines? What are all the things? And what does this mean exactly? For those of you who've been joining me on previous story and critique show episodes, you're probably pretty familiar with the podcast, or not the podcast, with the stream. But if you're new, I would like to welcome you. And I want to encourage you that if you are a writer and you're working on a story, submit it, send a live submission to my email. It's down in the ticker below at Kaufman@the-creative-ghost.com. gmail.com, and I will add it to the submissions either for today's show or for future episodes. All writers of all skill levels are encouraged to apply. It doesn't matter what state your writing is in. If you're halfway through or you're into your rough draft, just let us know, right? Hey, this is my rough draft, because I'm going to give different types of feedback for somebody who just did a rough draft as compared to somebody who's had a story that has been professionally edited and it's in a final draft, because they're in different states. So we always want to take into account where a story is at in the writing development process. So essentially, with the story submissions, we tend to get, I want to say, about a 60% resubmission from a lot of our community, and then a 30 to 40% submission for new writers who haven't submitted previously. I try to balance out the submissions so I can have returning writers and new writers, so that way we can bring more and more writers to the community. More writers means more commentary and more feedback to help you make your story better. The way I format it, I'll bring it up on the screen. Here we go. So as you can see, the way that I have the stories formatted, I have the story here on the left, and then I have the critique guidelines up here on the right. So that way, like, you can tell when I'm going through a critique, these are the things that I look for. These are the 5 elements of creative writing: character development, world building, dialogue, plot, and structure. Now, I put grammar into structure because I think grammar is absolutely important, but I think we have a lot of tools to improve the grammar process. So these are the 5 elements that I look for. If something stands out to you on the stream itself, or something stands out to you like you really like a part of the story, list the part of the story and drop it in the comment. The writers, whether they're here in the stream or they're watching on the replay, I guarantee you they're reading all the comments. So drop a comment if there's something you like. And if there's something you don't like that just doesn't sound right, quote specifically what it doesn't or what it is, and then your reason why. Because our goal, if we're submitting, we want to help you make your story as incredible as possible. So that way you can get it to that point where it will eventually be published. Beautiful. And then all stories received will get a 20-minute timer, 10 minutes for reading, and a 10-minute critique. I will do my best to stick to that 20-minute timer so I can make sure I get everybody's story in. And then let's see, if I'm highlighting, that is just for my reference, so I know what it is that I actually want to speak to when I finish the reading. So highlighting doesn't mean anything good nor bad. All right, and then let me turn off suggestions. Perfect. And excellent. I think that's all that I got. That's everything that I have. So I'm ready to hop into Stephanie's story. Beautiful. So there's that. So Stephanie, I got your story, Redfire. Let me throw it up on the bottom. Wonderful. Okay. Hey, what's up, Steph? Glad to see you here. So I have your story here at the top of the stream. Bethany, I see your audience, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, I am doing a brand new thing today, a quote of the day. So make sure that you are witty or creative with your comments, because I'm gonna pick one quote at the end of the stream. I'm glad we already got some Monty Python references in here. Okay. All right. So I got Redfire up. I am all ready. Okay. Redfire Excerpt by Stephanie Pilz. Chapter 2, The Attack. Seven months ago, on March 17th, the day that my life started getting, well, I guess that the word for it had to be bizarre. My name's Delana Volas, and I was 17 years old at the time. I had golden tan skin with long, unnaturally dyed black hair, which had turned back to golden blonde. When I had gotten my powers, Before this day, the only odd thing about me were my lovely eyes. I had these eyes that were green, but the pupil part of my eyes was blue instead of black. And they weren't just any blue, it was a bright turquoise. No one could explain to me why they were like that, and it just seemed like it was a mutation. Since getting my powers and learning I was a witch, my eyes turned completely turquoise. Anyways, both my parents were remarried at the time, and I know that my parents being remarried isn't strange, but it plays a part. I had just moved to New York a week ago from Kansas with her mother, Debathena, and my stepfather, Bob. I abhorred him so much. I didn't know what it was about him. I felt like there was something wrong with him, although I was never sure what it was. I couldn't shake the feeling I had about him, and I also had no idea what he did for work. He was very secretive about his work, but whatever he did meant that he had to be moved around a lot. Later on, I found out that wasn't the reason for us moving around. We were moving so much to hide from someone that was after my mother and me. My mother was my whole world. We did everything together, and that's why it hurt so much when I lost her. My mother's eyes were even crazier than mine. She had deep purple eyes with blue spots here and there. I was told that I looked like a mini version of her. At the time, my mother worked as an executive with a big company. I was never sure what the name of the company was. She never talked about her work with me, but they had offices all over the world, apparently. So all the moving didn't interfere with her job. I only one it seemed to affect was me. The only one it seemed to affect was me. I always had to switch schools all the time. It was annoying, and it also meant that I didn't have any friends. I haven't really been in one school long enough to even make friends. I've been in about 12 different schools in the past 7 years. My father, Russ, lived in Maine with his wife, Jan. He worked at a lot of odd jobs. He never could stay at one job for longer than a week. He didn't really have to work because he had money from his family that passed away years ago. I figured that he just wanted something to do. He also had golden skin and hair like my mother and me. His wife, knew Sophie was a homemaking, and she came from Greece to be with my father. She's nice, but you definitely don't want her to be mad at you. Trust me. The one time she got so mad at me for dropping a plate on the floor, she was so mad. And she yelled at me for about an hour and a half of it, and half of it wasn't even in English. They had a little girl together named Melissa, who was about 7 years old at the time. From the pictures my father has sent me of her, Melissa looked like a smaller me. On that morning, I was trying to sleep in, but I was shocked awake at 6 a.m. by my alarm clock that was blasting music from some radio station. I rolled over to shut it off. After I turned it off, the alarm clock continued blaring music. I was getting fed up with the alarm clock, so I grabbed it and threw it against the closed door. On impact, it smashed into pieces. I thought, finally, I can go back to sleep. As I laid back down, I heard music starting to play again from the now smashed down clock. I just stared at it with confusion, and I thought that was one persistence clock that was trying to cling to life. As I continued to stare at the clock, there was a knock on the door. Come in. My mother opened the door and looked down at the dying clock. I smiled as it finally stopped playing music, but now sounded like it was crying out in pain. Was the clock possessed or something? So, what did your alarm clock ever do to you? My mother joked. It went off and it refused to shut up, so I tried to kill it. But the freaking thing doesn't want to die. We started laughing, and our laughter seemed to finish off the clock as it stopped making any sounds and died. I see. Well, since you're up, why don't you get dressed? You have school today, my mother started. I thought, great. I get to go to another school and the new girl that anyone stares at. I'll also probably hear kids whisper, freak behind my back because of my eyes. Do I have to? Why can't I just be homeschooled for the rest of the school year? I hate always being the new girl. And when I do make friends, we tend to move again to somewhere else. I questioned my mother. Honey, I'm sorry for all the moving around, but you'll have to go to school. I don't have the time to homeschool you. I have some good news. I think we'll be here until you graduate, so you'll have time to make friends. This wasn't the first time I've heard that. I wish my mother would stop lying to me because I knew deep down that it was just a matter of time before we could be moving again to another place. Do you really mean it this time? Part of me wanted to believe her this time, but she was lying when she told me this back when we were living in Kansas. Yes, we will be staying in New York. I thought, yeah, we'll see. Okay. I guess I'm getting dressed then. I commented sarcastically. My mother left me alone in my room. I lazily climbed out of bed and walked over to my closet. I tore through my suitcases because I didn't even bother to unpack anything. I grabbed the first things that my hands touched, which was a red t shirt and a pair of black jeans with holes. After I had got dressed, I just sat on the bed as I put on my favorite pair of boots that I got from my mother on my last birthday. I knew I couldn't keep hiding in my room, and I had it face going to school, and I headed to the kitchen to face my mother. So, mother, what's for breakfast? I asked as I sat down at the table. Well, my darling, I have eggs, bacon, and toast for you, my mother answered me as she placed a plate of food in front of me. So, where's Bob this morning? I asked as I started eating and savoring the food my mother made me. He had to go in early this morning, my mother explained, but I don't remember him going too early. Really? I'm surprised I didn't hear him this morning. I questioned her because Bob liked to make as much noise as he could in the morning, just to annoy me. I told him to be quiet so you could sleep in a little longer. I was happy she did that, but I think there was a different reason, but I let it go. Thanks for that, mother. You're welcome, sweetie. Now eat up. I'll walk with you to school. I know she was just trying to be protective, but I wasn't a little kid. Mother, I'm not a kid. I don't need you to walk me to school. I'm sure I can find the school all by myself using the GPS on my phone. What's the name of the school again? My mother gave me the look, and I knew I was in trouble. You weren't listening to me at all last night, were you? She questioned sternly. I remember the part where you told me that it could be dangerous at night and that you wanted me home before it got dark ever tonight. I answered, avoiding her glaze. Well, at least you listened to something I told you. So, the school's called Blake High School. I put the school's name into my GPS. Okay, it's in the phone, and now I'd better hurry so I can get there on time. Bye, mother. I'll see you later. I hugged my mother and grabbed my bag and left. I walked out of our apartment and headed to the elevators. I hit the button and I waited there impatiently for the elevator doors to open. When the doors opened, I saw that there was someone already in there. As I walked in, I couldn't help but stare at him. I thought that he's got to be the hottest guy I've ever seen. He had breathtaking porcelain skin, and it looked like he worked out a lot. He had so many muscles, and he had jet black eyes with chestnut hair. He's got to be a model or something, I think. I thought, hmm. What floor are you going to? God, even his voice was sexy. I'm going down to the lobby. I stuttered out and reached over and hit the button for me. Are you new to this apartment building? I haven't seen you before. Was he just making small talk or was he flirty with me? Uh, yes, I just moved in about a week ago with my mother and stepfather. How long have you been living here? I'm Delana, by the way, and you are. I was trying to sound smooth, but it was hard to not stutter talking to him. I could feel my skin reddening a little from him looking at me. It's nice to meet you, Delana. I'm Damien. I've had a place here for years, but I spend most of my time traveling. I groaned quietly as the elevator stopped and the door opened. Well, I guess we ran out of floors, but before I part from you, if you need any help getting around the city, just let me know. With your mother's permission, of course. I'm in with 713. See you around, Delana. I couldn't find the words, so I just nodded. I stood there later than I should have watched him walk away from me. When she remembered that she had to get to school, I quickly walked outside. I took out my phone to see which way I had to go. As I did that, I also saw the time. And if I wanted to make it on time, I was going to have to run. As I was running to school, I could think about was how sexy Damien was. It took about 30 minutes to get to school because I made a few wrong turns. Okay. So let's end it there because that's a story break. Beautiful. All right, so as we get into that section, I really like Damien. I actually kind of like this, like, it kind of feels like a little like young adult-ish, like romance vibe. I like that, like the awkward, the almost like the awkward feel of it. I think my favorite part of this excerpt was the Damien bit. I thought that was cool. I love the intro and the introduction at the beginning of the chapter. I was like, okay, so we're kind of getting some backstory. I know that when we did the earlier chapter, we got to do a more of a deep dive into the fantastical part of it. And this one I could tell was just more on like setting up the normal day-to-day school life. And I really appreciated that. I would say right now what worked out really well for me, I would say I really like Damien's character development. I'm super cool. He just reminds me of the Twilight, like a Twilight vampire type guy. I'm really liking his character development. I do like her protagonist. I like Delana. I'm definitely a fan of that name, Delana. So I'm very much a fan of the character development. I think this chapter, focuses very much on world building, and there's some things that are working out really well for it. But I actually think what's holding the piece back right now is less the content, and it's a little bit more of the structure. I think that, and I mean, like the plot itself, the plot's pretty straightforward. I have no complaints with the plot. I think more from like a structural perspective, there's some areas where we can really fine tune and just dial back in some of the descriptions and conversations. So awesome. And let's see what we got from chat. I'm going to pause this really fast. Let's see. It's cool that you're reading other stories and giving it a bit of feedback. Absolutely. Welcome to the stream, by the way. I love reading stories. And as all y'all can tell, I absolutely love being able to act out the stories. All right. And then what else do we got? Yeah, and John, you brought up a really good point earlier. A professional editor is absolutely necessary. But a lot of beginner writers who are doing writing as a part-time hobby generally just might not have the finances to hire a professional editor because editors can be expensive. But that's a really good call out. That's why I try to do this free thing to help speed up the early part of the process so you can hopefully eventually make money off of it. Awesome. And it looks like, wow, John, by the way, congrats on making so much progress on your story. That's actually really awesome. Let's see. I'm looking here. I'm seeing what did y'all think of the piece? I think I saw some feedback in between. Awesome. And it looks like there's some good comments on here. So I know Tomic 7 months ago on March 17th, this is an incomplete sentence. Yeah, so I think you guys are probably going to pick up on some of the things that I'm going to see. Let's see. I hear you today. Yeah, so there's a couple points where I'm seeing that the tenses switching up. Let's see. You guys are probably agreeing with some of the things I'm saying. Okay, so let me hop back into it, and I'll hop back into comments in just a second. Okay, so when I go back to the beginning of the piece here, let's look here. So from a structural plot perspective, I actually recommend shortening. So the intro, I'm actually good with the intro because we need to set up the character arc and set up the backstory. I'm actually perfectly good with that. What I think really needs to happen is we need to cut down, or I would highly recommend cutting down the section from after you do the setup with the mom, from that once we get to the present moment on that morning. So I would recommend cutting down. Now obviously you can't like use my page count because my the font's probably going to be different than what you're using. But on the morning, when we get to that present morning section, or that present moment. So when you start with the present morning, all the way to the mom section up until before we meet Damien, I would just recommend cutting down on it. Right now, like I get that you're kind of setting up with Bob, and you're setting up with kind of like the relationship and the dynamic with the mother. Okay, it's on the phone, and now I'd better hurry. Yeah, so I want to say that was probably a good little chunk there. I think my challenge with it was like we got the cool fantasy stuff in the first chapter, and then the second one we're like kind of going back to the mundane, which is fine. But right now it lost my interest a little bit because like I loved the first chapter. And I think the reason it lost me was because there's not enough foreshadowing, or there's not enough world building that speaks to the fantasy element of it. We kind of speak to her character background of like new girl in school, and I'm like, I'm fine with that. But I think what I would want, or something that could really help, I would suggest shortening this section or adding more foreshadowing moments, right? So adding more moments of like recognizing maybe something weird going on, or doing any type of reference to the fantastical element of the world. Or I would just recommend cutting off the having her wake up and then cutting the mom conversation short, because it feels a little repetitive, and there's just like, okay, she talks to the mom told her about the school and she wasn't listening. That's like a normal teenage daughter thing. And then she basically leaves for school. I feel like that could be condensed into like a couple paragraphs, and it could still serve the same purpose. The reason being is because I want to get to the fantasy stuff. I want to get to the vampires. I want to have more time with Damien, our sexy, dashing Mr. Damien. I want to learn more about this character. And I knew from the first chapter that Damien was an interesting character. I was like, I forgot if he was the one who saved her or if he was the evil brother. I think he was the one that saved her. And like now that he's introduced, as the reader, we're like, ooh, I want to know more about Damien. So that would definitely be a thing that I would recognize. In terms of some of the specifics, I know there's some areas I highlighted. I had golden tan skin with long, unnaturally dyed black hair, which had turned magically. So I think now, Stephanie, I know you do a lot of your writing with speech to a text, which is completely understandable. So what I would recommend when you get to your the next draft of it, probably going to have to go through the editing portion of it. And my guess is a lot of it was probably just a result of the speech to text, which I know you usually do. So I think that there's just a lot of minor editing things that could be used on. But I love the description. I had golden tan skin with long and naturally dyed black hair, which had magically turned back to golden blonde. Okay. I got an image. I like that. And then you point out to her eyes, which is super cool. And this is cool, right? This is why it's interesting, because you touch upon the powers, right? You touch upon them, but then I don't really get any other type of power thing in the present moment story. So I would almost like maybe go back and forth of like referencing like the powers, or yeah, that would be my suggestion. I think that's how I do it. Let's see. I just moved to New York a week ago. Let's see. I found out that the reason wasn't the reason for us moving. We were moving so much to hide from someone that's after my mother and me. This is interesting, right? So this is a really interesting thing, which means like if you really wanted to up the foreshadowing, I would actually make the mom's character like super paranoid. I think that'd be really interesting. Like the mom, like the mom's serving her breakfast, but she's like looking out the window. And then you have the daughter being like, Mom, we're going to be all right. I might do something like that. Like the mom's super paranoid about her stalker, but in reality, now the problem they're facing is they're dealing with vampires. So I think that's fun. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think this is what I would highlight with the mother's character. Make her like super paranoid. But just a subjective suggestion. I only one it seemed to affect was me. Yep. And like I said, it's just minor. A lot of technical editing. She was so mad and she yelled at me for about an hour, and half of it wasn't even English. She was so mad and she yelled at me for about an hour, and half of it wasn't in English. For some reason, I totally pictured like having like a little quote of like the Spanish, having like quoted the mom, and the mom quoted saying like starting in English and then switching to Spanish. For some reason, that's what like I pictured. I thought that would have been a little funnier, even instead of doing. She was so mad at me. She yelled at me for about an hour. So and so, honey, you did this, and then hablo español. Sorry, no hablo español. Hablo español un poquito. So that's what I would do. And then we get to this. I already touched upon my recommendation. Smart as I find it, but now like the alarm clock bit was funny. I was fine with the alarm clock bit. Probably could have shortened it down a little bit, but overall it was funny. I think some of the dialogue just needs to be cleaned up. I would say, see, well, since you're up, why don't you get dressed? You have school today. Let's see. And I like that her and her mom have this like connection. And I like that you establish that with the alarm clock. The daughter talks about killing the alarm clock. So I'm like, clearly the mom's down with that. So clearly her and the mom have like this connection, which is great. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's some good character building. I think I think by cleaning up the dialogue and just making it a little cleaner will help to make that stand out even more. But I think their character arcs, I think her character arc is clear. I think that's understandable. Um, I don't know why. This just made me super hungry. I was like, well, my darling, I have eggs, bacon, and toast for you. I was like, my darling feels kind of forced. I would give her a nickname. I would have the mom give the daughter like whatever her nickname is. And then there was a couple times where she calls out where she says mother, and it feels kind of awkward. I would just get rid of like the bits where she says mother. Or maybe just say like mom, do something that just feels maybe a little bit more natural. But that could have just been a me thing. Let's see, and where were we? And then we get to the elevator bit. I absolutely love the Damien bit. I was for it. I was for our sexy vampire. I was expecting him to start like sparkling or something like that. But I was for it. I think the only thing was just some of the dialogue was just cleaning it up, making sure that you're using the tags correctly, and you're using the grammar rules for dialogue. How long have you been living here? But yeah, I was actually pretty good. The section with Damien just felt really strong. It's nice to meet you, Delana. I'm Damien. I've had a place here for years, but I spent most of my time traveling. I almost feel like you should add a little more foreshadowing in his actions of him like looking around, because like this is subjective or suggestive of like, okay, yeah, he's a vampire. He's traveling. But I could imagine him being like time traveling as he looked around, as he looked through the window like he was looking for something. I groaned quietly, thinking that he was looking at me or something like that. Oh, this part when she remembered that she had to get to school. I think you're referencing the mom. This just was unclear, so I'd rephrase that. Excellent. Beautiful. And Stephanie, that's all that I got for you. That is all that I got for you, my friend. Okay. So I hope that helped. Thank you for submitting that chapter. Please keep sending more. I absolutely love it. I am all down and all for that type of writing. I want to get back to the fantasy. I want some more like vampires. I wanted to get attacked by the vampire and find the Redfire. So I hope that's coming because I'm stoked for it. Awesome. And let me catch up on comments. Let's see. I got to make sure I'm on top of my comments today. Yep. Writing mode and editing mode is definitely a thing. Completely agree. Especially when you're getting into the creative flow. That's why I always actually recommend for writers when you're starting a sprint, and this is just something that works for me. I actually start off in editing mode. So that way I can do some light editing for what I just did. And then I transition back into my creative flow. That's something that's just worked very well for me. At least when I'm going through a rough draft. But if I have to go into like major editing mode and like deep dive into a story and break something apart, then I'll save that for a specific editing for editing sprints. Bethany, oh, well, single dads can master the multitasking. Yeah, I can totally speak to multitasking as an individual. I'm like the type where I can't be doing one thing or I get bored. I have to do like 10 things at once. I'm always like, I got like things that I'm working on, things that I'm listening to, and then the TV on. And I'm like, all right, I'm in my zone. I always had friends laughing at me because I multitask quite a lot. Yeah, Atomic, I actually asked myself the same thing, Stephanie, with your thing of having it being Delana and Damien. I like when I started, I was like, I didn't like it originally, but as I was kind of going, I'm like Delana and Damien. I was like, okay, it could kind of have a flow. It could, I think it could be a thing. I'm Delana and Damien. Delana, Damien. I'm not opposed to it. I think it could work personally, but I honestly think it's also a matter of preference. Zach, you're agreeing with me. Absolutely. Same thing. So it's easier. Kid, so it was easier to remember if it was a feeling. Let's see, Bethany, you had a good comment. Sounds like a farmer is naming kids, so it's easier to remember, or if it was a feeling like few families who kept all the kids with all the first names starting with the same letter. It's kind of interesting. I didn't think farmers at all, but that could totally be a subjective thing. Damien, yeah. Stephanie, I could totally tell Damien's your favorite character. He's like the sexy, like, once again, he was the strongest of all the characters, at least in this specific chapter. And I think that really stood out, especially if he was your favorite. It's totally understandable, Stephanie. So, like, I think that's important. I think what I'm going to start doing for future submissions is I'm going to start asking when people submit what draft the submission process is on. Because if something is literally just a fresh rough draft, and it's like, okay, there's obviously going to be a lot of grammatical errors, then I should just start by saying that in the beginning. So that way we're like, that that's what we're working on. So I think like I'm going to start clarifying like some of the submission things that I need probably in future shows. But yeah, and like your book like does need like a full editor eventually, but essentially I would say it's more like probably like a quick editor. Absolutely. And Stephanie, by the way, if you need editing services, I do editing things all the time. So definitely message me. I know email me and I'd be happy to help you out if we want to do some sort of like deal to do like a quick edit before the streams. I know. The alarm clock bit was hilarious. I absolutely love the alarm clock bit. I'm like, yes, all for it. Woo! Awesome. And you know what? That is perfect. That's what I'm talking about. Literally editing as we're going. Like, Stephanie, I absolutely love that. I love when writers submit stories and then they bring them back for later after they've worked on them because it shows how much they've been editing and it shows how much they like take feedback and improve on them. Because once again, guys, like my goal is to help you write the best story possible. I want you to get to a point now in a couple months, in a couple years, whenever you make it work for your lifestyle, to publish the story. And then we can think back once you start like getting all the success to be like, all right, it started with the story critique show. I'd absolutely love that. That'd be cool. Hey, what's up, Bo? And welcome to the stream, my friend. We just wrapped up the first reading. We'll be hopping into the second one shortly. And Atomic and awesome. Let's see, Bethany. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this is a really good chapter. This is an excerpt of Stephanie's book, Redfire. I think we did the first chapter 2 weeks ago, which would have been on Story and Critique Show 15, episode 15. Definitely make sure you check that out at some point if you want to check the first part. Ooh, that's awesome that you have a full first novel. Congrats. Absolutely congratulations. That's incredible. Excellent. So with that, let me queue up our next reader. So Stephanie, once again, thanks for turning that in. The next one we got The Line in the Sand by Nico Bratchke. So Nico, I got your story here as I am queuing it up. Give me just a moment as I queue up Nico's story. Nico, I got your story coming up. All right. And then in the meantime, while I'm getting Nico's story queued up, let's see. We got two things. So first off, if you're enjoying the stream or you're finding value, follow and subscribe. tap that follow button if you're here on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, or X. And if you're here on YouTube, subscribe. Monday through Thursday, Kaufman Writes is our casual writers group where we do writing sprints and we talk about all things writing. Friday is the story time where I do readings of best-selling novels. We're currently going through Fourth Wing, the popular dragon novel, apparently young adult with shadows at it and a bunch of stuff, romance going on there. That's on Fridays. Obviously, our Saturday story and critique show. And then tomorrow's our Sunday, the Creative Right Now podcast, where I interview industry professionals. And tomorrow is going to be a masterclass on publishing. So make sure that you are subscribed and you will be alerted when I go live. Beautiful, wonderful, wonderful. And by the way, if you missed it out, make sure that you're commenting voraciously today. I am doing a quote of the day game. So I'm making sure that I'm reading every single comment. Basically, whatever comments stand out, I'm starring them. When I get to the end of the stream, I'm going to pick a quote of the day. Whoever wins the quote of the day, I will be adding it to a leaderboard that I'm creating for a community thing that is coming. It's coming soon. So we'll have a winner. I thought of there's one thing that I love. I've always been a gamer, so I'm always eager to see how can I create things that are more interactive and speak to my gaming nature. Awesome. So make sure you are commenting. Okay, then let me hop back into the comments. What do we got here? What I've written? Yeah, Eli, I do the same thing. I do the absolute same thing. I always start sprints with edit what I just wrote. And when I say edit, I do like light edits. If it's something that's going to take like a lot of time, like if it's something where it's like more like I know I have to rework characters or rework the world, I put that on my to-do list and I keep going because I don't want to get to a point, or I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm like, okay, now I'm spending the whole session editing when my goal is to just finish the rough draft first. Hey, what's up, Katan? Welcome, my friend. Glad to have you in the stream. Welcome. Let's see. We're just about to hop into the next submission for Nico's. Let's see. Let me throw up his banner. All right, Nico. Wonderful. And by the way, if you're wanting your story read, email an excerpt to kaufman@the-creative-ghost.com, including title, genre, and pen name, and I will add it to our submissions. Okay, and I got Nico. Let's see, where are we at? Exactly. And Zach, that is one of the things that I love about this community. I haven't had to set any ground rules yet. I'm sure it'll happen eventually because since I'm streaming every day, like the community will grow. But so far, all of the writers in here are like super constructive, very helpful, want to just offer great advice because like we're all in this together, guys. We all want to become published authors. So I absolutely love it. We have a very supportive community. Glad to have you here, my friend. Oh, you did? Woo! Love it. I get to enjoy all my acting experience and my acting background with our suave Damien. Thanks, I appreciate that. And I'll have so much fun when I get to the audiobook, when I start doing my audiobook for Last Scarecrow. I have to say this. What do you call a writer addicted to editing? Addicted. Oh my god, that is clever, Lewis. That's absolutely clever. Oh my goodness. I think right now I have about 5 to 6 nominations. Oh man. All right, let's see what else do we got. The fat lady hasn't sang. Not saying Jared is neither fat nor a lady. Bethany, thank you. I'm glad you're not calling me a fat lady. But I do get that. I do understand that reference. Let's see. It's a good one regardless. We all have witty stuff to say. Perfect. I like that title, the line and snap. Okay. All right. I am all set. So I'm caught up. Let's get into section reading number 2, The Line in the Sand by Nico Bratchke. All right. So I got 20 minutes on the clock. I've been there at the desert. It was a place of no hope, and no one cared about me. Not even nature wanted to bless me. Fortuna and death laughed at me, and even death did not kiss me and end my suffering. When I was there in the emptiness alone and about to lay down and collapse, suddenly a bit of the air started to smell awkward. It tasted like a blaze or a bit of an electric shock. My skin began to form the well known goosebumps. Then I saw a very hard hitting flash. The light remained for minutes and I was almost blind. After the about 480 seconds of more pain, a huge, scary noise came. A thunderstruck, so loud and hard and heavy, my heart began to freeze. I was sure that this was the end of days. But after a few moments of silence, nothing. Still nothing. And then a sudden drop of an H2O, of an HO2 molecule. Furthermore, it started to rain. It rained and my life source came back to me. I felt cold and I was sneezing. But this was so awesome. I never I I felt never again that much alive. But then after 3 hours of flood rain and me dancing again, it suddenly stopped. I felt alive, but the situation was different and scary again. Out of nowhere, a parade of camels appeared. When I was lost in the desert where I thought I forgot my own name. Then so much beautiful things happened before my own 2 eyes. After 50 camels passed by me, a small but well-dressed man with dark skin tone appeared. He was looking so kind, had a gray beard and blue eyes like diamonds. He who was mysterious and so gentle. And yet I knew that he was a warrior too, because he had a rifle and a scaffolding sword. It looked like a crescent moon, and he had a turban on his head and a blue scarf with signs I could not read at all. The line in the sand. As he then, for looked me straight in the eyes, I felt a huge tension, and he came to me. And after he tapped with confidence slowly in my direction, he said, "What happened to you, Akadash? Have you been lost? Why do you come to the desert and dress up like that? Are you sad? I can help you to get out of the desert, but you will be my slave then. Do you agree, or do I have to kill you now?" My adrenaline boosted and kicked my brain. I was trying to drop my jaw, but I was not even able to. So I just nodded. And thus my new journey began to his palace. After a long trip through sand and miles of sand, only we arrived at his luxurious palace with a golden top. I think I saw many women without a real view on any part of their skin. But according from the looks of their movements, there must have definitely been females, and it was so many I could not count. All had been serving the master, who took me to his blooming garden. Then he made a gesture to tell me to chuck wood of some palm trees and make fire. It was 1,000 wooden pieces, more like cut off stamps of enormous trees that smelled like something sweet. I did as he was trying to tell me. What choice do we have, kid? I worked the next 6 hours with a small axe, with some nice symbols on it, close to the symbols the master was wearing on his scarf. The axe was barely sharp enough to fulfill the task at the end. When I was sweating and about to be exhausted, a woman came up and gave me, under her covered hands, a jug full of wine. I never had drank wine that good ever in my life. It was a red wine, but with cinnamon, and also it was pure and delicious. A bell rung, and I heard a voice singing. All women fell down on the knees. They raised up again and fell, raised up and fell for 3 times. I was a bit confused, but I think they were praying. I thought, yes, I pray for something, you bloody venomous vipers of Satan. Then the master came to me again. He said, "Slave, must go to your cage. Now, lay down and sleep on the ground." The line in the sand. Tomorrow, I wake up. Tomorrow, I wake you up, and the training will begin. I tried to follow his words, but I was so confused. Why should I train now? What for? Do I even want to? What if I get strong and beat him up? Did this guy think this through? Within the darkness in the inner side of a six-sided cage, with stars as some sort of making this prison look like home, I played down crying and faded away in the less bright light of the stars at the night sky. I dreamed I was held by snakes, and the snakes came to hypnotize me and bite me. Ugh. I could not move. It felt like I was paralyzed in my dream, and after the snakes had bitten me 10 times, I felt a swap on my face and body. Then I found myself deep, wet in water, and upset, ready to smack the person who was responsible for this. But I forgot after the dream, I was in a medium cage and broke my middle finger at a metal bar of my cage. The pain made me feel like I was supposed to die, but I refused to cry or scream because the master smirked at me, amused by my stupid mistake. He said, "All right, slave, now you're going to punch stones on my altar with both of your hands." I really was hating to understand what he demanded, and it felt sadistic and made me feel sick. But I gave in to his orders. I obeyed and went to a training room where a kind of shrine was in the front of me. Stone plates were put on a pedestal, and I moved close before it. And I started after a moment of desperate hesitation to punch the stone plates. The first punch was from my still healthy hand, the left one, but I knew the next punch will hurt very bad, and I was right. I continued to try to smash the stones. Nevertheless, even after my hand started to bleed, my broken finger was bleeding the most, and I had to keep going. After my blood covered half of the floor and my shrine, the master appeared and said, "Enough! Now clean this up, maybe even with your tongue if you have to. But you can use this towel too." In an extreme fast and precise motion, he tossed the damn towel without it unfolding it in a very weird way to me, like it was a frisbee or something. I was then still in pain, but I tried my best to wipe up my own blood from everything I was making dirty. This took long, and I couldn't move my middle finger anymore. I was upset, but did not my job. The master came without noise, appeared again out of the blue. That fast, I thought he was a freak of nature, or a magical deity, or just like what I had to call him as, my master. Suddenly, I felt he was not so bad anymore. I began to sympathize with him, and sometimes it seemed he did the same. On other days, it was different, but at that moment, I felt almost attracted to him. I did not really fall in love for him, at least that is what I think, but I try to explain it with respect for his power and superiority over my life. He gave me a chance. He nodded again and nodded into a different direction. We went further. No, he took the lead and I followed him like a puppy. He said right before a giant iron gate, "Are you ready to learn about your true meaning of life? Or do you want to die now?" I said, "Yes, master, I want to learn." He pulled a golden switch and the big iron gate opened sideways. In the room was a giant library and hundreds of globes. I could not believe what I saw. Then he sat down on a reddish-brown armchair before a black table made of marble. He began to pick up the books from the table and read loud and showed me the book to read to myself. I was unable to understand 90% of the explanations, but sometimes my brain made connections. I understood the idea of cosmos and chaos. The whole thing that exists only exists for the things themselves. I was tackled with those ideas in my mind like a clumsy quarterback in a football game. Some things I could not understand, but others were obviously true. He smirked again for a fraction of a second when he noticed my progression and change. Then he walked to a piece of furniture and opened it and took some things out. He treated my right middle finger with a burning liquid and a stinking ointment. He bandaged my wound, and it suddenly felt like I could feel my fingers once again. The middle finger still hurt, but I said quickly, "Thank you, master." He gave me that look with the diamond eyes. It struck me hard every time he did that. The next day, I was awake without any water, shower, or dream, still in my six-sided cage, still a prisoner, but almost happy about it. The master appeared and said, "Arkadas, now I will tell you the secrets of your existence. You are, in fact, more important than anyone, Arkadas. I did this all for you." His eyes closed as if he felt some kind of regrets. I was puzzled. What did he say again? Almost lost my finger, and I was forced to be here. And then I thought, wait, listen to his words. And they continued. We all been in a dream. Reality. We all been in a dream. Reality. We must have been in a dream. Reality. Copy. The first, the last eternity. As it is written, it will always be eternity. He made a movement with his hands and said, honored by the man who is the hero over the people. The unknown king who is the final victor. My lord, you have come finally, and after long years, the world will be in the shadow of the swords. I did not understand any of it at all. This was almost like surreal and melodic, but at some point, I began to think very much different than ever before. Awesome. All right, that's the end of the beat. Let's pause there. All right. So first off, Nico, really, really great work. So I know that this story, I know it was originally in another language and that you translated it over. Now, what I don't know is whether that you brought this is whether this story is for an English audience or whether you just brought it for this format. But regardless, writing a story in your own language and then moving it to a different language is difficult. Like that's a hard thing. And I think clearly there was a lot of places where there could obviously be improvements from a structural and grammatical perspective. What I would recommend, Nico, and this is really going to depend on who, where are you getting it published and who is your audience. If your audience is wherever for your home language, keep it in that. But if you're bringing it and you're planning on publishing it for an American audience, not American, English speaking audience, then what you would want to do is just make sure you hire an editor because you actually have you have the structure and the core of a really interesting story here. And there just needs a lot of editing. There's just a lot of little like editing things here and there that would be greatly helped and improve the structure and the readability. But overall, so I just wanted to make sure that I started with that because I have to commend you. I've literally never written a story in another language, so I imagine that's hard. But as I think about the story in general, there's some things that you did that are really, really cool. I think there's world building here that is absolutely phenomenal. You do some really great descriptions. I like the character's journey. I like your protagonist. He's kind of starting off as this slave. So he's starting off as a character. He's captured as a slave, and he's kind of being forced to like learn through this like severe hardship. That there's this prophecy, and the prophecy part, like I absolutely love the prophecy part. I think you have some really great elements for a story here. So that's actually super cool. I would say world building and character development were my favorites. As I go through the story itself, let's see. This right here, Fortuna and Death laughed at me, and even Death did not kiss me and end my suffering. I love that. That is what a great quote. Obviously, like we could have like edited this a little bit, but I love that. Fortuna and Death laughed at me, and even Death did not kiss me and end my suffering. That is like, oh, I love it. And you see, writers, this is a great use of word choice to tell something in a way that hasn't been done before. Really great work. Let's see. And then this opening section with the thunder and the freezing, I'm not quite sure what's going on. But that's fine because it's opening, right? It's right like him in the rainstorm. And it's the way it's written is actually really interesting. So I'm intrigued by it. And I'm wondering what has to do with how the elements are affecting the character's journey. And I'm definitely very intrigued and want to know more. And I love that this master's name he has a gray beard and blue eyes like diamonds. That's actually a really good description. It's simple and it's to the point, right? It's easy for me to picture someone with a gray beard, older gentleman, clearly he's the master with blue eyes like diamonds, diamond blue eyes. Now, writers always switch on how they want to do descriptions. Some writers like to do a minimal approach where you just give a few details, kind of like yourself. Other writers want to do like a full character description. There's no right or wrong way to it. There's absolutely no right or wrong way. It really just comes down to your personal preference and how you like to describe from a storytelling perspective. Let's see. And I knew there's a word or two. And then so you had the section breaks with the line in the sand. I could tell, and this was probably a result from translating it from a different language. But what I would recommend is turning each of these into chapters. And maybe you did it in your original, and it could have just been from formatting it. That's possible as well. That from the formatting, this was probably the header. But the way the story goes with the section breaks, I would actually highly recommend doing each of these as chapters. I think it would actually make it stronger, regardless of if that was the title was the heading or not. I think you should definitely do each one as a chapter. It's completely your call on if you want to name the chapters. Naming chapters is like a personal preference for writers. I love naming chapters because I like using the name of the chapter as a hook. I love it. I'm also a fantasy writer, and that's a huge thing in the fantasy genre. But naming chapters is, once again, personal preference. I would still recommend using a chapter device, though. Let's see. And you know what? Like, something about this master, like, he's very straightforward. Are you sad? I can help you get out of the desert, but you will be my slave then. Do you agree, or do I have to kill you now? Like, I actually like that. Like, the dialogue could definitely be cleaned up a little bit. But I like that the master's like, come with me or you're gonna die. I'm actually like for this master character. I'm trying to understand. I haven't read enough this story to understand, like, okay, is his character believable? But I like what you've set with him so far. And the name Akadesh is a very cool name, by the way. Absolutely love the name Akadesh. I love names. 100% think Akadesh is a great character name. Let's see. What else do I got? And it's interesting that the master has him do all these different tours and tasks, right? I think the only question I have is, and this could just be maybe it's something you address later, but when the character is enslaved by the master and he's in this like palace or this area, why doesn't the character just run away? Does he have some type of like collar on, or are there guards? Are there things that are preventing him from just running or going to hop a fence? Or hop like a palace wall? I think that's just a question. That's a believability question that's in the back of my mind. And it would be important to address. Unless, like, does the character have basically nothing else, right? Is being a slave a better quality of life than what he had previously? If that's the case, then you just have to touch on that, right? Maybe that's what's keeping him there. Or maybe he is the type of character who he is honor bound, and it is outside of his morality to break a promise. I don't know. You could go any number of ways with it. It's just important to address the why for the reader. But yeah, I absolutely I love the overall journey. And what an interesting line. So you have a group of women who are on their knees. I was a bit confused, but I think they were praying. I thought, yes, I pray for something, you bloody venomous vipers of Satan. What a descriptive line. What a descriptive line. Now, I think my only challenge with it is like from a pure word choice, from a pure sentence, it's incredible. It's a really well done sentence. The only problem is I don't understand why he's saying it. You don't give me any description for like, does he have a thing against women? Does he have a thing against, like, has he been scorned by somebody? Was he hurt by women? Does he like hate all women? Does he have a thing against God? Does he scorn a god or a religious deity? The thing is, like, it could be any number of things. And so far, the character has seemed like kind of like a very like kind of quieter, very more like humble character. So this makes him seem like, oh, is he actually like, is he egotistical? Is he chauvinistic? Is he just hate religion? There's so many things, and because you don't give enough description, I just don't understand why he's saying it. Right? What I would suggest is I would add a little description on maybe some interiority for him and better explaining the why behind it. Or adding more parts earlier, like what is the things that he hates, and I think that would help. Let's see. Let's go think through. I like that he's stuck in this like 6-sided cage with stars. I think that's actually like unique. A 6-sided cage with stars. I like that. And then once again, the fact that you use this transition from that venomous vipers to a dream about snakes, that is great. Absolutely great. That is absolutely how a dream would work. The transition to the dream felt actually very believable. So really, really great work on that. I think the only problem with the dream, okay, but I forgot after the dream I was in a medium cage. Okay, cool. So you did actually call that. I might almost say that like and then I woke up from the dream. Because when I was doing the live reading that lost me, then I woke up from the dream. Just make it a little clearer for the reader. Excellent. And the thing with him punching the stones like that's tough. Like, no, thank you. I'm not punching any stones. That does not sound fun. Broken fingers. No, thank you. But that's great. That's a great moment, right? Now, my only question is why does he punch the stone and why doesn't he just try to make a break for it? Is the master like have like a whip? Does the master have a gun? Does the master have some type of weapon that's going to prevent him from fleeing? That is my reason why, right? Or that's my that's what I want to know. So I would just make sure to include a little there. And before I wrap this up, I also want to touch upon the where were we? So I want to touch upon the prophecy. So clearly what the master says, this prophecy bit is very interesting. And I'm saying prophecy, I'm assuming it's a prophecy. And then he goes in this whole prophecy bit. This is interesting. I absolutely love the prophecy bit. This is kind of setting up, right, the greater story. I would say secrets, you're more in fact. Now this translation, it probably just got lost in the translation, but it just needs to be edited down a little bit. What I would say is with prophecy, you want to different readers will tackle prophecy and storytelling differently. The challenge with prophecy is you want to make it needs to be both vague and clear at the same time. And this is why prophecy is difficult to tackle in a lot of storytelling. You need to make it vague enough so that the reader can't guess what the prophecy is saying, but it has to have enough description to give the main character, the protagonist, clues that they're like, oh, maybe this is what it means. So prophecy is a challenging one to deal with. But I love it. Prophecy is always a fun one. So I would say just cleaning it up a little bit, making it a little clearer on how does it pertain to him specifically. I think that's what I didn't get. And it's possible that because we ended right after the prophecy bit, that maybe you explain it more in detail in the next section. That would be my thoughts on it. Awesome. And that, Nico's all that I got for you. Thank you so much for submitting it. And thank you for sending it. I had a lot of fun reading it. Once again, your prose is very awesome. Your prose is really awesome. I love your word choice. Despite, like, obviously there's areas that can be cleaned up. I absolutely love your overall style. Is really cool. And eager to see if you keep developing this and where it comes to. So thank you again, my friend. And let's see. Let me now hop into the comments. Okay, let me see. Marta, you had a comment earlier. What do you call a person without a body and without the nose? Nobody knows. Wah, 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 wah. Let's see, Marta, someone who got into the wrong. Bethany, Marta, someone who got into the wrong cabinet of the nurse's potions at Hogwarts. Bethany, a fellow Harry Potter fan, I see. I'm curious what house you are. Let's see. If you want a book that will be well read, drop an email, listen, and be successful. If you want a book that this is like poetic. If you want a book that will be well read, drop an email, listen, and be successful. After applying all that Jared said, if you want a book that will be well read, drop an email, listen, and I feel like I can find a better choice. Zach, I absolutely love that. Thank you for that. That's actually really cool. I'm like, maybe a quote for advertising for the show. I absolutely love that. Thank you. Yeah, Zach, thank you. I love the poetry. We've actually gotten poetry through her before. I don't think we've gotten any poetry submissions in probably about a month or so. You should definitely submit a poetry piece in the future. Absolutely love that. Yeah, Tom, my guess is it was H2O. That's kind of what I figured. Also, but HO2 is known as hydrogen superoxide. I was like, yeah, that went right over my head. I don't even know what that is, but my guess is probably H2O. Or maybe it's just like a super ability or like some sort of like elemental like thing. Maybe they're getting rained down in hydrogen superoxide. That would actually be kind of cool concept, wouldn't it? Let's see. WTC Creatives Web Design. You said, do you focus in on young adult type stories? What are your thoughts on adult situations? So that's a great question. I tend to focus on all genres. Well, okay, let me clarify. So for this stream specifically for the story and critique show, I accept all genres. In my writing and my personal services, right? I do coaching, editing, and ghostwriting. I tend I've gotten a mix from clients. I tend to do a mix of fantasy, sci-fi, some romance, and nonfiction stories. Um, what I personally read, I read a mix of literally everything. I actually read a lot of different types of stories. My thinking is that genre has certain conventions, but storytelling at heart, character development, world building, that doesn't change. Character development, world building, dialogue, plot, and structure, that is generally going to be the same at the core across any genre. What changes with the genre is all the specifics, all like the type of language. Now, if I'm comparing the young adult type story to an adult situation, uh, that really comes down to thinking about who your targeted readership is. If it's a story or if it's a book, if it's a script, who is your audience, right? So a young adult type story is generally going to be read by target audience of, I want to say young adult is probably ages probably like preteen to teen to young adult. So probably like I would guess like ages 10 to maybe early 20s would be my targeted young adult audience. So if I'm writing young adult, I'm creating stories and I'm creating themes and things that can relate with somebody who is young and who might not have a lot of life experience, but they could use a lot of imagination. There's a reason why a lot of like romance is young adult, because kids are usually more going after romance because they haven't experienced or they may not have experienced it yet. Language tends to be a little bit more common, not common. It just tends to be a lot more basic word choice and language because that's just the audience. Whereas if I'm going for like an adult situation, or I'm going for more of a mature audience, I'm generally going to be using different, probably more word choice. I would probably be doing more gory type of details or more extreme or more descriptive things that would really make it resonate with an adult audience. We've definitely gotten some really interesting adult situations and some adult stories in here. I mean, I think we've definitely touched on, we've got some serial killer stuff. I think there was a section, there's a rape one at one point. I'm trying to think. There was an abuse one that we've gotten as well. I think those are some of the more extreme stories that we've touched upon. I'm of the mindset that all stories are good. If you're writing a story that's touching on extreme things, then maybe you're writing it, like just be clear on why you're writing it, right? Maybe it's to start a conversation. Maybe it's to help people who've been through abuse be able to relate and know that they're not alone. I think just being clear on what the situation is and why you're writing and then who you're writing for makes all the difference. But WTC, that was a great question. I hope I was able to answer that for you. Let's see. Waypay, your reading loud is amazing. In case, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm blushing. Thank you. Appreciate it. Lifetime of acting. I actually haven't been able to do any acting in probably like good like 6 or 7 years, but I always loved it. So I'm glad that I got to bring my acting chops back into the live stream stuff. Yeah, Bethany, English is the hardest language to learn, from what I've been told, simply because English, like we're used to it a lot of since we're all English speakers here, but English has the most non-conventional rules. We have the most exceptions. So it's the most difficult to learn. I've heard that as well. Yeah, Zach, I actually thought that as well when I was going through this story. I definitely thought I was going to be going towards like a type of like devil thing, but I mean, we could still go there because right now, technically, the master is kind of a mentor character. It could go to that darker place. I think we're not far enough into the story to determine what the real antagonist is, especially after hearing that prophecy thing at the end. Yeah, and I agree. I think the thing that works for it is that it comes across like a myth. Now I imagine like when it's in its original language, obviously the style and prose will flow differently. But I think that's absolutely intriguing. I love mythological stories. Mythological stories tend to focus on less description. They use specific word choice to make the overall the world building is generally vaguer. The character description is generally a little more intense, but the plot and the theme and the learning lesson generally tends to be more poignant. Absolutely agree with that, Eli. Great comment. Hey, what's up, Sean? Welcome to the stream, my friend. Glad you were able to hop in. Awesome. I know I got your script up coming up in a bit as well. I know I'm not sure my house. I know I'm not Slytherin. Well, cheers to that. I'm a Ravenclaw, so yeah, Sean, you bring up a good point. Young adult is hard, especially at my age. I don't remedy what it was like to be a young adult. And I mean, like, this is the thing as well, right? So if we're writing for a different age range, um, we have to do more research if we want to cater to that age range. Generally, for like scripts and stories, the people that we tend to attract the most are those who are at our age group or at the next youngest generation, which is like I think it's like a 3 to 5 year age below us because that's what we just experienced. So that tends to be who resonates the most with us when we're writing our stories. Now, of course, that can change. We can write for different markets, different age groups, but then we just have to do a little bit more research and understanding what what types of things different age groups like to read for whatever genre I'm writing. Absolutely agree. I think it's just a different genre more than anything. Ooh, yours has adult language and spicy scenes. Woof. Yeah, so I mean, WTC, you can absolutely submit it. Adult language is fine. We've definitely gotten a lot of cussing in them before. That's not a problem. Spicy scenes with sexuality or with sex. I think I would just I probably have to review how descriptive the sex is. I think my guess is of all the things I read aloud, I don't think there's any problems right now. If I get to a point where I start bringing like doing advertising or bringing advertisers in, that'll probably change. But for right now, I don't have any restrictions. So you should definitely send it. Feel free to send it over. Let me throw in the Kaufman's Corner. So send it over to that email, Kaufman at thecreativeghost.com. I'll throw it in the comments at make sure don't to get the dashes at thecreativeghost.com. So yeah, definitely shoot it there. I'd love to take a crack at an excerpt of it. I've read all styles of writing, so there's no stories that I've had to turn away as of this point. Absolutely. I would absolutely love that. Hey, if anybody wants to anybody is looking to hire an audiobook narrator, I'll absolutely take it. I'll absolutely do it. Clearly, I love doing characters. The reason I haven't like marketed as a service is because I don't have any type of proof of concept yet beyond like the stream. Clearly, you guys can see what I do, but I don't have a proof of concept for an audiobook to be able to like sell it as a service. But if you're looking for an audiobook narrator, I'd absolutely love to do it. Shoot me an email and I'd love to learn more. I'll probably like talk it. I'll probably like talk it through more and do a little more research on what people look for in audiobook narrators after I narrate my own book, Last Scarecrow, because I definitely have the equipment to do it for sure. Bethany, whichever house you feel you are most you most resonate with, or I'm sure you could do the 1,000 quizzes online, whichever house you feel in your heart, my friend. Okay, excellent. So that was good. Let me throw up my next our next story. Who do I got on deck? Eli. Eli, I got your story on deck. Baboon pie and Jaguar champagne. We got the revision, so we're looking into it. Once again, Eli, one of the strongest character descriptions that I had seen in a story. So I'm going to be pulling that up in just a second for Baboon pie and Jaguar champagne. I got you on deck, my friend. All right, so let me pull that up. Baboon pie and Jaguar champagne. Oh, still love the name of your story so well. Very great word choice. Excellent. And then while I'm pulling up your story, Eli, once again, if you're here in the stream, I'm doing a quote of the day game. So make sure that you're commenting actively. I am highlighting the quotes that really stand out to me. And at the end of the stream, I'm going to announce which quote is the winner. The quotes I'm going to start adding to a quote of the day leaderboard that I'm building as part of a community resource that will be coming soon. So make sure you're commenting. Clever comments always to the front, but any comments as they pertain to writing or storytelling will be added. Thank you. Thank you. So there's that quote of the day. And then where are we at? So we're also at reading. Ooh, perfect. So let's highlight the art of writing. So for those of you, let's say I got to pull up my post. So for those of you who love, who just want like free writing advice, free writing tips, or anything of that nature, I have a newsletter called The Art of Writing. The Art of Writing I offer writing articles, techniques, stories, and I'm planning on adding some more collaborative and community aspects to it as the newsletter grows. I just launched my first edition. By subscribing and signing up to The Art of Writing, you will also get access to the free editing tool. It was an easy editing tool. I want to say it's 15 to 20 pages. Will help you when working on any edit of your story. It's all free. All you got to do is just sign up, subscribe to the newsletter. Let me drop the link in the chat. Beautiful, perfect, and I'll drop that here. So to let me type this to subscribe the Art of Writing newsletter. Perfect. So there you go. So I just threw that in the chat. So you just want to follow that link. That link will take you to the subscription for the Art of Writing. Make sure to sign up. I haven't figured out what consistency I want to do for it yet. I'm thinking I'm either do like weekly, every other week, or monthly. I'm still kind of going back and forth on what feels right. So, but the second issue will be coming soon. So make sure you're signed up and you'll get access to the Art of Writing. All right, all right, all right. And there's that. Beautiful and Eli. All right. So let me throw that back up. Eli, I got you all set. I got 20 minutes on the clock. All right, here we go. Let's see. Actually, let me make sure. Let me check my email. Got to make sure that I'm not missing any of your emails. All right, bear with me just a second, my friends. I always want to make sure that I don't miss any submissions while I'm live here in the process. Okay. It looks like I'm good. So let me hop into Eli's story, Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne. Beautiful. There we go. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Before I start, WTC Kaufman's Corner, something I saw with some of the authors that I follow, they did a video about critique partners and had people go down into the comments to possibly find some critique partners. Ooh, that's a really good idea, WTC. Also, they did a video about critique partners and had people go down in the comments to possibly find some critique partners. That's a really cool idea. I'm going to resonate on that. I'm going to resonate and do some research. Right now, I'm working on building a community tool or a community resource for any of the writers here to be able to interact with things when I'm not live streaming. So I'm working on it. It's coming soon. So once I launch that, that critique partner thing is actually super cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. If WTC, if you have any specific authors, whether they're YouTube channels or authors you recommend I check out, I would love that. I love chatting with other authors. I love connecting and networking, and I love finding more published authors to bring onto the Creative Right Now podcast. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, my friend. That's awesome. Hey, what's up, Nell? Welcome to the stream, my friend. Happy. I hope the writing's treating you well. We're just about to hop into our next story. We got a very active community today. I'm having fun. I brought the catitude, so. Okay. All right, let's get into it. So we did this version of the story. I want to say, I think it was a couple weeks ago. This is a new, it sounds like the 5th draft of the story. So let's see how it sounds. And I'm eager to get into it. Okay. Baboon pie and Jaguar champagne. Zikung 1 Superbike Bandit, somewhere near the Colorado-Wyoming state line. 62321. Zikung stood at the top of a small, rocky promontory, in the midst of a shimmering ocean of grass that danced in the wind as freely as Moses. Mo for short. Zikung's young son had when he was still just a toddler, not quite big enough for the road. The wind bit against the back of Zikung's neck, and the aging bandit turned the collar of his green leather riding jacket up against its teeth, to no avail. In this part of the world, the wind runs free for miles and miles and miles, without much more than a loose scattering of small rocky promontories, like this one to slow it. The sun crept down, but Zikung kept his hexagonal sunglasses with their iridescent lenses on, and simply jerked his head lightly to the left to transition the glasses from sunblocker mode to crepuscular enhancement. He was a short, powerful man with a wiry, slender build, full of sinew and potential energy waiting to be released. He wore a loose-fitting silk tiger print shirt, which he left halfway unbuttoned, exposing a respectable tuft of graying chest hair, and 5 or 6 dangling chains and medallions, mustard yellow pleated trousers, which flowed loosely around his legs in the windy dusklight. Before they tapered down and tucked snugly into his bright red riding boots, he had a thick black beard. It hung shaggy and tangled down to his collarbone, and it also danced in the wild, whipping winds. But so too did his hair dance, though not with the freedom and grace and innocence of a child, but with the wickedness and hate of a thick knot of coiled vipers. It was jet black and 2 feet long, and Zikun couldn't remember the last time he'd washed it. A short black hand-rolled cigarillo hung loosely from his mouth, embering in the wind, glowing like a ruby in the dying light. The smoke curled and swirled and flitted off into infinity. Zikun followed the smoke with his eyes until he saw what he had been waiting for, far off to the east. In the gathering gloom, a red semi-truck carrying a yellow cargo container drove along the lonely ribbon of road which cut through the shimmering grass sea. Red truck, yellow container, just like Jimmy said. Zikun muttered to himself under his breath. Jimmy. Next time I see Jimmy, I've got to give him some of that new batch of jerky. Maybe a swift kick in the ass. Depends how things go tonight. In Zikung's line of work, banditry, that is, thieving, really, for the right price, In that line of work, a man spends a lot of time alone and grows accustomed to voicing his thoughts with no one around to critique them. In his line of work, a man's life also at times intersects with those of men in dark professions. Brilliant men whose genius and ambition outstrip their morals, if they had any at all. He'd heard the rumors, the supermen, the beast people, the grotesques. Ugh. Using a complex series of rapid eye darts and rhythmic blinking, Zekung activated 10x magnification on his glasses and assessed his target. Okay, friend, just you, or do you have company? He couldn't see anyone else in the cab. Perfect. Could be armed, but that's not a problem. Zekung was armed too. He wore holsters on both hips and one on each side under his riding jacket, each with a specialized custom pistol, each with its own purpose. One was fully automatic, another was high caliber. For when he had to really pack a punch, then he had his go-to, the sort of everyday pistol, and finally was his favorite. The one he kept on his left side, a genuine prototype laser pistol. He'd stolen it off a drunk ex-Soviet scientist in Beijing a few years later, and he treasured it ever since. It ran off little energy cells. One cell gave him between 1 and 50 shots, depending on the intensity setting, which was controlled with a small dial on the side of the gun. The dial was all in Russian, naturally, and he'd been forced to conduct tests to figure out how many shots he had on each level. Once that was done, he'd written a little script to integrate the count into the HUD of his glasses. He glanced routinely at the counts: H40, C16, C4, Y0. Getting hit at the lowest setting was basically like getting shot with a normal pistol, except for there wasn't much in the way of ballistics involved. The laser shot straight and went right through bones and didn't ricochet around and do all the extra damage like a bullet. It was a surgical weapon, which is why it had an experimental scope which interfaced with his glasses to allow him to aim no matter how he held the weapon. At the second setting, it was like getting hit with a shot from a high-powered rifle. You could expect to lose a limb that was hit anywhere, even close to the torso. Zekung had once killed a charging bison with a single shot at setting 3, bored a hole straight through the top of the beast's skull, big enough for Zekung to stick his entire arm through. He'd only ever shot one thing on setting 4, and that was a derelict old tour bus, and it exploded like it was hit by an artillery bombardment. Oof! It was difficult to extrapolate, but he guessed it could maybe destroy a tank. Ugh. He thought about the blasted up old bus as he stood there overlooking the ocean of grass. It wasn't an image he was likely to forget. Person to be vaporized instantly, he muttered as a particularly cold gust of wind blasted him. Zekung may have been a bandit, but he didn't want to vaporize a man's soul. Going through the hell of life on this earth was punishment enough, he figured, and anyone gone through that deserves to find comfort in the next life with the benefit of a body to enjoy its pleasures, whatever they may be. He sighed deeply, and for a second there was a look of profound pain on his face. Then it passed. In addition to the guns, Zekung carried various edged weapons as well. A hunting knife here, a dagger there. He had a sort of spike club that he carried from time to time. In truth, these were mostly for show. Sure, he'd use them if he had no other choice, but Zekung was a bandit, not a brawler. Ugh. He preferred to keep his targets and their defenses at as great a distance as he could, pick them off from safety, and avoid killing at all whatever possible. He wasn't a man of violence, but he knew how to use it as a tool. At least that's what he told himself, and that's the way he tried to live. And when he couldn't keep his target at a distance, he opted for stealth over direct combat. To this end, he employed several sophisticated computer splicing interfaces, which he'd received as payment for a set of particularly damning photographs of a rare earth metals magnet from his then closest competitor. These devices afforded him access to all but the most sophisticated computerized logs, provided he had time to let them run their protocols. He took a last deep drag off his cigarillo before dropping it to the dusty ground and stomping it out. He reduced the magnification on his glasses from 10x to 5x and then to 1x as he watched the red semi-truck with the yellow cargo container roll along the ribbon of road amid the lengthening shadows. He turned and walked over to his superbike. It was a deep Byzantine purple, and the engines and pipes were a sleek matte gunmetal black. There were several heat-proof LED lights inside of the various alcoves of the body, and they emitted a faint glow of whatever color Zekung wanted. As he strolled back to the bike, the light oscillated. Slowly, from a sky blue to a vivid chartreuse green to a deep burnt orange and back. He turned them off with another series of eye motions. The lights didn't serve any tactical purpose, but Zekung had installed them when Mo was born, so the boy could be less afraid of the noise the engines made. Now he didn't dare get rid of them. What man would remove a part of his own soul? As he lowered himself onto the machine, he let out a long sigh, like you might when lowering yourself into a steaming hot bathtub. This was where he felt almost at home. He stretched out and ran his hands across the handlebars. The engine roared to life with a flip of a toggle next to the throttle. It was longer and lower than a typical motorcycle and looked more like an F-117 spy plane than a shovelhead. All angles and aerodynamics, and not a curve to be seen. It had an array of headlights in an octagonal formation. He could control the orientation, the brightness, even the color of each light individually, with controls that interfaced with his glasses, and could even switch them from conventional headlights to infrared or even ultraviolet. And using the widescreen of the Superbike, which could display these parts of the spectrum visually, he could ride without being seen, all while seeing his target as clear as day. He closed his eyes tightly, muttered a sort of prayer to himself, Mo, and activated. Superbike interface, ultraviolet spectrum enhancement on his glasses with a quick series of lid flutters, and exhaled sharply as the Superbike rolled off down the small rock promontory to meet the red semi-truck with the yellow cargo container in the valley below. End. Submission part 1 of 3 in the chapter. Woo! Man, Eli, once again, I still continue to be impressed at your use of description, your use of imagery. Woo. And like reading through it this time, because there was much less clutter than the previous read through with the descriptions of the guns. Really great work. Really, really great work. Your use of description, your use of word choice is so unique to you. I think this story is an excellent example of how do you use word choice, and I'm going to pull up right here. How do you use character development combined with world building and structure to create a very unique style? What I love about it, Eli, is I've never read a story that sounds like this one, that sounds like your personal style, and you're doing a really good job. Now, there's a couple opportunities, but the opportunities that are there are it. I would say the story's at the point where, at least this section would be at the point that you could save it for an editor. A lot of the things that need to be fixed are going to be more on like the grammatical and some more like technical things. But overall, like from the story purpose, really great work, my friend. Really, really great work. Let's see. And you did a really good job in all the things that you cleaned up. Let's see. So let's hop into it. Let's see. I'm not going to have too much commentary because you fixed a lot of my issues with it previously. Let's see. Let me get into it. Once again, your description is amazing. Just know, like, I'm not going to call out too many specific things that I liked, but like the whole thing, the thing as an overall piece was very well done. I know for a fact in my mind, I can picture Zekung. I can picture his pistols. I can picture he's standing on this grassy plain overlooking this heist he's about to do. I can picture his the glasses, how they change, how he can shape them. They have the different magnifications. I picture his bike, which is very, very cool. The color thing that it can change it. It's very, very vivid. And it feels like this could be a story. It feels like this could be even turned into like an anime adaptation almost, or it could be like this cool, like post-apocalyptic sci-fi thing. Like, very well done. So let me go into some of the opportunities for it. Let's see. From Sunwalker mode. Good. This is all good stuff. Yeah, so Ela, I think the biggest thing for this first section is just from a structure perspective. You have 1, 2, 3. So this first paragraph takes up, this is what, a half a page, 1, 2. So the first paragraph takes up about 2.5 pages, but the text is blown up. So let's bring it down. I'm just curious how much it would be at 12-point font. So 12-point font, this would take up about a page. From a reader perspective, we want to make our reading experience as easy as possible. It's easy to lose a reader if they see a long block if they see a long chunk of text. I don't want you to lose your reader because this is such a great story. So make sure that you're splitting up your paragraphs into a little bit more bite-sized. You can, of course, get away with this every once in a while, but especially because this is the beginning, you don't want to chance losing them in the beginning. If you do a page-long paragraph in like the climax and the reader's been fully engaged, that's different. But as the beginning, I would just make sure you're breaking up the paragraphs so they're more bite-sized. Overall, your descriptions are amazing. Let me perfect. So let me bring that back up. So yeah, overall, your descriptions are working out very, very well. There's a couple areas here and there where I would challenge some of the run-on sentences. But it's one of those things, Eli, where it's very well written, and it's more like it just like it needs when it gets to an editor, like that's basically the stage that this is at. It basically needs somebody to basically sit down and then go line by line. It would be like a line edit, but it's like nothing that comes to mind. I think there's just a couple of run-on sentences, but I'd have to do a little bit more of an in-depth deep dive to really be able to figure that out. So beyond that, but yeah, that's all good. The description itself is beautiful. Let's see. And I love how you changed it so he's speaking to himself the entire time. I think that works really well. It does work really well. And then you call it out, right? That his thing is that he speaks to himself. I love that. It's interesting. It almost has the vibe. It almost has that like ideology, Eli, that he's I don't know why I got this, but that it's clarified that he speaks to himself all the time, but it almost makes me think that at the end of the story, we're going to find out that he's actually speaking to the reader directly. That's kind of like the vibe that it gets. So like he's talking aloud, but it's almost like, I don't know why it gives me that idea, but it's almost like, yeah, I don't know. It's for some reason, it's just an idea that came to me. All right, what else? But I love what he's saying. It's clear. The plot is very clear. Let's see. And I loved, and I don't know if I had missed this earlier. He had heard the rumors, the Supermen, the Beast People, the Grotesques. That sets up a very intriguing world. I'm like, ooh, so I'm in superheroes? No, not quite. Beast people, like mutations. That's interesting. Excellent use of foreshadowing. This is how you foreshadow world building. So really good work. Could be a foreshadowing plot, but this is essentially world building. Awesome. Zekun was armed to go to. Okay, so I have a couple recommendations for the pistols. So with the guns, huge improvement over last time. This works. Like I understood what was going on. Now I want to challenge. Let's bring it to the next level. So the pistol, let's give his pistol a name. He clearly cares about his guns. I feel like his pistol needs to have a name. It feels like that's the type of character that he is. I would recommend coming up with a really cool name for his pistol. Then he had his go-to. So, I mean, it's his go-to pistol. So I imagine he's calling it something. Even if the pistol's like name is the make of the pistol and it's etched on the side, right? Kind of like a boat has a name. That's what they call the boat. You could do that, but give the pistol a name. Now, for the settings of the laser gun, it was much, much clearer this time. H40, C16C. So it was clear. I didn't get lost. I understood that there was four distinct settings. And I kind of connected like, okay, well, these are the different settings. What I would recommend, and I think you can make this a little clearer. Why don't you give each setting a note or each setting a name? Instead of having each setting be like the lowest setting, the next, and the next, why don't you give each setting like a specific name that was maybe etched onto the pistol, like kind of like a nickname. Yeah, I mean, I think that would make it easier for the reader, for you, especially for you and for the reader throughout the story. And then if you're describing it, instead of the H40, C16, C4, Y0, if each of them is like a name and that's how you describe each setting, then whenever you bring up the name, the reader remembers the name. You can get away with doing the setting level as well. I just like from a reader, I feel like a name mechanic will be a little more effective personally. So, but that's totally subjective, up to you, but that's something that came to mind. But the descriptions of each of them was good. That was pretty similar. I loved all the descriptions. Same thing with just breaking up the paragraph, Ela, just making sure that they're not having a long block of text. It's just a structural grammatical thing. And like you do a really good job of using the descriptions of the present moment. I notice it even more. He's talking about the gun, but now you mention the present moment and the weather. Person be vaporized instantly. He muttered as a particularly cold gust of wind blasted him. Perfect. We're back in the present moment. He's overlooking the banditry, the thing he's about to go do. Awesome. So that's great. We get the character development. This works. And then you touched upon his weapons. I love that you use the weapons to do character development. It works out very, very well, right? I would almost think that he would have a bigger reaction, or it almost makes me think that throughout the story, people are going to call him a brawler and he's going to like take offense to that. That kind of makes me think like that's going to be a thing of like somebody's going to like call him a brawler in a bar and he's going to like get into a bar fight or something like that. That's what comes to mind. But this is good. I just highlighted this so this is just I wanted to highlight an example of a run-on sentence. So if you're reading something and you can't say it in one breath, could be an indication. It's not always the same, but it's just a test. Okay. And there's not even a comma in this. So to this end, he employed several sophisticated computers splicing interfaces, which he'd received as payment for a set of particularly damning photographs of a rare earth metal magnet from his then closest competitor. Run-on sentence. So it just needs a little grammatical, either breaking into two sentences, adding some grammatical, some grammar things to break it up. Either or could work. Let's see. Took the last go cigarello. Yep. Love the cigarello. I love the cigarello thing, and I love that you're using the cigarello to kind of ground him throughout the story. And then we're getting to the superbike, and the superbike's just badass. I want one of these. I don't even like bikes. I don't even like motorcycles, and I want one of these. So that was cool, and especially like the color changing thing is fun. The lights don't serve a tactical purpose. He just likes them. But he installed them for his son, for Mo, which was cool. That makes me think that like this is going to be really important later on when we get to if Mo comes into the story. And this is such a great quote. What man would remove a part of his own soul? Oh, wonderful. This just tells me that you have such a clear understanding of your character and your world. Really great job. Perfect. More like this. This was just another really good description. It was longer and lower than a typical motorcycle and looked more like an F-117 spy plane than a shovelhead. All angles and aerodynamics and on a curve to be seen. This is great because I have no clue what an F-117 spy plane or shovelhead looks like, but you use enough description to give me an image, right? All angles and aerodynamics, not a curve to be seen. Great. Perfect. That works for me. And beautiful. That is all that I got for you, my friend. Thank you for submitting that. Absolutely incredible work with improving it for the next revision. I absolutely loved it. Thanks again for bringing it in, my friend. That was really, really awesome. So that was super cool. Super, super wonderful. Let me hop into the chat and see what I missed. All right. Where was I? Yeah, Zach, I actually agreed with that. When reading this, I could have seen this as a Tarantino movie. I could have seen it as a Tarantino thing as well, especially specifically because of the character type. Totally could have been like Zekung, the next like Tarantino franchise. Eli, if you ever turn this into a script, you should pitch it to Tarantino's company. This is the type of thing that they would probably buy, especially if there's a lot of intensity and gore and stuff in it. Yeah, I agree with that. I missed it. You use promontory twice, cut out the second use of promontory. Agreed. Yeah, Eli. So I mean, I can tell from the chat, right, that a lot of the chat's very invested in the story as well. So it's really, really great work, my man. I'm like now like totally gonna blame you, Eli. If like for the rest of the day, I'm imagining like I'm gonna be thinking of those glasses and that like that the super bike. I'm like, dang, that's so cool. And I want a laser pistol. Gotta go find an old Russian to us bum one off of. Ooh, what's up? Welcome, Colt. Glad you're able to be in here. Let's see. Colt, and what I'm currently working on, I've kind of hyper focused in on the space, only a few feet around the characters, very little description of the overall surroundings. Yeah, and I mean that's just a matter of personal preference, right? So like when we think about describing the world and the environment, it's not always necessary. Like you don't have to always talk about like how green the grass is or what the storm clouds are like or what the mountains are like. It's not necessary. When we think about world building and we think about our setting, we literally have to have enough we have to have enough details that your reader knows where the character is at. You can't do a setting with no description because then the character can't, then the reader doesn't get enough of an imagine or enough of a picture to put it together themselves, right? I think I said this earlier, but some writers do a lot of description and like to describe everything. Some writers do a minimal approach. No right or wrong way to it. It's definitely personal preference. But if you're a writer who does a minimal approach, you still want to give just enough so that way the reader can think of like, oh, this key detail or this key detail. And that's kind of what Eli did with the plane when he referenced the plane. I think that was a good example of it. But I'm also framing it from the perspective of a child, right? And then so like beyond describing it, you're also based on whoever your protagonist POV is. So absolutely, I could see why the overall surroundings probably wouldn't be as predominant. It sounds like you have some really good character development work in there. I think so too, Eli. Agreed. I know. I think most writers probably talk to themselves like that, but the fact, Eli, that you call it out, I think works very well for the character. It just adds to the believability of it. But yeah, a lot of writers do talk to themselves, mine included. My characters come to life. I talk to my characters. I'm a weird writer. Represent. Oh man. Let's see. Yeah, Eli, I think that's a good call out, right? That you can I give the names in English and I explain all that. I agree. I think that what you have now is really strong. And I wouldn't change too much of the developmental nature of it. It's just adjusting little things at this point because it is a really strong chapter now, a really strong section. Oh, Zach, you're referencing Lucille. Oh, love the Walking Dead reference. I think around the Negan arc when he showed up was kind of when the storytelling kind of started having issues, but at least from the show's perspective. But overall, I appreciate The Walking Dead for what it did. I remember when the series aired, The Walking Dead did a great job. Walking Dead was actually successful for the same reason that Game of Thrones was successful, because Walking Dead didn't tell a story about zombies, just like Game of Thrones didn't tell a story about mystical creatures. Walking Dead told a story about characters and real people trapped in a zombie apocalypse. Game of Thrones told a story about real people who were fighting for a throne and then were later attacked by mystical creatures. So that's why both those stories did very well and blew up when they in their early days. Awesome. I'm glad that this helped out, Eli. That's really awesome. And to everyone, give feedback. Thanks. Excellent. Let me throw this in there. I see. So let me throw this to the chat, Bethany. I see that you're asking a question for the group. So let me just add some context because this is the thing that we're here to help with. So you're asking, anybody got legit first aid experience, need help? I know from the past couple streams that you've been working on developing your blood magic for your story. And I know you're in a section where you're trying to figure out having the character do some type of like a mending or healing. What type of, I would say, Bethany, state what is the specific question that you need, and we'll try to help you out. I myself don't have first aid experience, so that's not something I can speak to. But I would say if there's anybody who's a doctor or maybe who works in some type of medical profession in here, that'd be super cool. So I'd pose the question to the group, and we'll try to see what we can do. Yeah, Eli, I think that would work well, honestly. Mm-hmm. No way. Lucille was the name of the pool stick in Fresh Prince when Uncle Phil. I remember that us. Uncle Phil. Oh, I was so sad when that actor passed. I was sad when that actor passed away. I remember that episode. I watched Fresh Prince when I was super young all the time. I can't believe that pool stick was also named Lucille. That's really interesting, Bethany. I'm 100% going to go watch that episode later. I'm like really curious now. I'm sure it's probably on Disney or something. Interesting. That's very interesting. Apparently, Lucille and is like a naming choice for aggressive weapons. Yeah, Eli, absolutely. Absolutely send part 2 over. Always recommend send submission sooner rather than later. And I'll queue it up for next weekend. Awesome. So Bethany, you said I need the proper cleaning for a deep cut. And then Tom, you said usually irrigation, flushing with saline, I think. Okay. If for anybody else who wants to weigh in there. Okay. So while we are throwing that up, let me queue up my next story. Who do I got on deck? I got a flash fiction short story, Flesh by Prolifically I Write. I got Flash. So I got this one queued up on deck. Wonderful. Let me pull it up. Beautiful. So I got your story all pulled up here. Flesh by Prolifically I Write. All right. And in the meantime, while we're waiting on that, let me just touch upon a couple things. If you need your story read, make sure to send the submission to kaufman@the-creative-ghost.com for more submissions and future stories and pieces. So make sure you send that over and I will add it to the queue. Beautiful and Mary. Awesome, Mary. I just saw your you sent over this submission. Thank you for sending it. We get chapter 2. Wonderful. I'll add it. Beautiful. And let's see, what do we got next? Perfect. So I wanted to make sure I called that out so you know where to send it if you want to send a submission. And once again, reiterating the quote of the day. Brand new thing. If you're just joining into the stream, I'm doing a quote of the day challenge. Whoever has the strongest, maybe cleverest, maybe most world building or character development focused comment in the stream is going to get added to the quote of the day leaderboards that I'm currently adding. I will announce the winner at the end of the stream. So keep your comments coming and stay tuned. All right, so I wanted to shout that out. And then once again, where are we at? Do you know a writer who needs help with their story? Share this with a friend. I'm trying to grow this community and bring in as many different types of writers. It's my vision that we can have writers in here from all genres. Because once again, writing at heart, storytelling at heart doesn't change. We still want to write characters, write worlds, and write things that resonate with people. So by sharing this, I really appreciate it. You're putting it out to a greater audience and you're really helping us out. So right below the video description, tap that share button and I would appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. And then I got Flash. I got you all queued up. Let me throw this on the banner. Beautiful. So we got this here and I got 20 minutes on the clock. Let me just do a last comments check. Some wounds are good. Where are we at? So it looks like we're getting some more help for Bethany, which is awesome. Before I hop into the story, let me just check. Can someone be allergic to saline? That's a good. Yeah, it's like these are things I don't even know. I'd have to do research. Interesting. Atomic was saying some wounds they will actually scrub with a brush to get particulates. I think it depends whether it's a clean cut or a laceration in the environment where it occurred. Ooh, it's a glass cut. If you've ever been cut with glass, no, thank you. No, thank you. Oof. Awesome, Zach. I got your story coming up. Let's see. Also, the setting matters. For a deep cut, first aid might focus more on closing the wound and preventing blood loss rather than cleaning. I think that I do know. When you think about like, at least from like movies and TV shows, when somebody gets cut deeply, like we do know that the first thing is to stop the blood loss usually. That would make sense. You don't want someone to bleed to death, obviously. Awesome. Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, it's the stream's growing. It's super cool. I'm glad that we get to have so many writers in here today. Y'all motivate me with the writing inspiration. Let's see. And then Mary gave a good comment. Bethy, sorry if I missed out, but where's the wound? Pressure to ease bleeding, clean with water saline, some kind of antibiotic and bandage, stitches if necessary. So then it sounds like it's in the palm of the hand, in a kitchen setting. Okay. So whatever like kitchen things are at your disposal. And giving blood, they had the arm above the head, right, to minimize blood loss, right? That would, I think, I mean, that would make sense to me, but what do I know? Awesome. So Bethany, it looks like you're getting some really great comments. Keep it coming. Keep asking questions if there's anything specific you want to know. And I'm going to hop into Flash. Flash. I feel like we're getting like some type of like horror or zombie or something bloody. So this was a piece of flash fiction, and let's see what we got. Flesh by Prolifically, I write. Within blood-streaked glove. Within blood-streaked glove, my hand works the long blade of my favored knife, slowly and rhythmically, through quivering flesh, each passing cut made in reverence of precision. It is a skilled art to fillet and segment a body into its component parts, transforming it into manageable, sized portions. I undertake this task methodically, not once considering the life that once inhabited the muse of my art. Only the ritual is of import. The selection process is always with this end in mind. With extreme prejudice, I make my selection and execute the silent requiem of each sacrifice. I wipe my forehead on the pink flecked sleeve of my jacket, wicking away my sweat, but smearing the juices of my creation across my forehead like a mark of tribute. Before me, laid out in perfect assembly, my artistry is complete. The carcass cut into perfectly equal sections, but arranged within its component parts, a sliced and diced imitation of its living self. Not a mockery, but homage to the artistry of my craft. I stand back and marvel at the marbled flesh, the varying colors of pinks, reds, and deep maroons of the pallor of skin, distribution of fat, and the contrasting white of knuckle, end of joints, and bone. And then, just like that, I commit it to the fire. I then watch the flame sanctify and transform it once more. I witness the skin shrivel and sear, the fat render as it hisses and spits, the flesh shrink and contort as though still alive and retreating from the flame. The sweet smoke, rich with the aroma of roasting flesh. My BBQs are renowned, a local legend and talking point. They're always well attended. I add the theater of butchery at the grill in order to add drama, to entertain and educate. Macabrely, all agree it adds to the flavor and enjoyment of the food. Mwah. Through the haze and smoke of the grill, I watch my friends and neighbors fall ravenously upon my offerings. Coyly, I accept their compliments and praise good company. Good food shared well into the late suburban evening. Only one neighbor is absent among those gathered tonight, although no one is mentioning it out of good taste. Tony had, after all, wronged many of us with the seduction of a selection of our wives and daughters. Ugh. At the time, it had been a shocking and cascading bout of revelations for those affected, myself included. One, Tony had cowardly ran and hidden from. Several weeks had passed, and no one had heard from him during this time, leaving shamefaced partners and conflicted husbands to deal with the aftermath without the luxury of a focal point for their righteous anger. As I flipped the last few cuts on the grill, I considered that, of course, he had still been here in a way. Perhaps in a far more palatable way for all concerned. I smiled as my apologetic wife sheepishly mingled and took another large bite from her plate, dabbing her mouth delicately with a napkin. I hoped she was enjoying it. Wow. It wasn't the first time she will have had a piece of Tony inside her, is it? End. Flash fiction. Really, really good. Oh my goodness. That was like that your use of word choice to describe the character's mentality was very well done. I like absolutely 100% love that. For doing that as a piece of flash fiction, that was very well written. I don't know if you've taken this through any like editing or revisions yet, but that was really well done. What works so well about it is you have clear character description. So let me pull up what works well. So you have very clear character description. Your character development is awesome. The world building is clear. The plot is clear. I think this is the opportunity, but I think the plot just needs to be more cleaned up, more from a structure perspective. But not sure, more from like a grammatical perspective. But yeah, oh my God, these things were so well done. As I was reading this, I got the cross. I saw somebody mention Hannibal. I was getting the cross between definitely Hannibal Lecter, and now obviously I know it's a musical, but the character type of what was that? The Demon Barber, Sweeney Todd. It was what I got 100% Sweeney Todd vibes for some reason. Obviously, a completely different style of story, but in terms of just a character who's having like, it's basically a revenge story, and he's basically cutting the people up and they're serving them to people. So I kind of got that same like vibe across between Hannibal Lecter and Sweeney Todd. That was the vibe I got. So that was super cool. Wow. I was so impressed. I felt even as I was reading it that like the description was like what it was just very clear. It was very, very clear, which I absolutely loved. And I think what I'm impressed by, Zach, is it's hard. It is difficult to write a piece of flash fiction that has a full beginning, middle, and an end with clear character development, with clear world building within a confined story. It's difficult. I've done the writing sprints on the I've done the free writing sprints here on the stream, and doing them in such a short period of time, it's difficult, right? Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, based on what I choose to go with, but really great work. I think flash fiction is an absolutely great medium, and it's a great way for writers to be able to practice storytelling in such a short scope. So as I think through, I think the grammar, yeah. So I mean, I think it's once again, I think I'm feeling some run-on sentences again. So like this beginning part should have been so awesome because this is what should pull me in. But I think I got tripped up on some of the on the wordiness and the it just needed some fixing. So within blood streak, glove my hand. So this was probably an accident. I would imagine this was within my blood streaked gloved hand. Within my blood streaked gloved hand, little wordy within, and glove just isn't. I mean, within my within my gloved blood streaked hand. Yeah, I mean, there's a better way to word this, but I'm not going to dote on that right now. Within my bloodstreak gloved hand works the long blade of my favored knife, slowly and rhythmically through quivering flesh. Now, I get what you're trying to do is you're trying to do the word choice to pull them in, but because of the word choice here, I understand what you're saying, but it just loses me easily because it just needs to be structured differently. Let's see. Works the long blade of my favored knife slowly and rhythmically through quivering flesh. What I would have done was I think I would have ended it here. Within my blood streak gloved hand works the long blade of my favored knife slowly and rhythmically through quivering flesh. Works the long blade of my works the long blade of my favored knife slowly and rhythmically through quivering flesh. I think that works. I feel like there's a better way to word it, but I would do that. And then each passing cut made in reverence of precision. Or actually, I would go this. I think that would be the way that I do that. Then my blood streak gloved hand works the long blade of my favored knife. Actually, because it's obvious that it's slowly, this is how I would do it. Within my blood streak gloved hand works the long blade of my favored knife. Favored knife. Let's see, I'm going to pull this up. Each passing cut made in reverence of precision. Both precision, rhythmically through quivering flesh. I think that's how I would do it if I was editing this. Within my blood streak gloved hand works the long blade of my favorite knife. Each passing cut made in reverence of precision, rhythmically through quivering flesh. I think that's how I would fix that. I think the glove, I go back and forth on if the glove is necessary. It's kind of an extra word choice. But within my blood streaked hand works the long blade of my favorite knife. Each passing cut made in reverence of precision, rhythmically through quivering flesh. Yep. So I think that this is how I would fix that. But you see, it's just little things like that. But like if you're doing it as flash fiction, you're clearly not focused on editing. But that would just be an example of little things like that. But I think especially because the intro and the hook is so important, that's why I always like to review my hook, make sure that it pulls the reader in. And then I get to this and like your word choice is like amazing. And I'm like very clearly along for the ride and understanding. I'm like, yeah, I got like Hannibal Lecter's like offspring over here on a revenge. This is like Hannibal Lecter and Sweeney Todd had a baby, and this is the offspring. Oh God. All right. Undertake this task not once considering the life that once inhabited the muse of my art. Oh, so beautiful. It's so beautiful for an anti-hero. So beautiful. So well written. I make the selection and execute the silent requiem of each sacrifice. Oh, Zach, just very great word choice once again. I absolutely love this. This is how you create an anti-hero. Absolutely. This is definitely how you would go about creating an anti-hero. And this character is very well defined. Zach, you could totally turn this into a longer story if you ever wanted to, because there's a lot here and you tell it within a story, or at least even a short story, there's a lot here that you could really expand on if you wanted to. This is good. Just needs a little bit of editing, but nothing crazy. The description works good. Ooh, I love it. It's like I feel like most of the things I highlighted were just things I really liked. Um, Reds and deep maroons, the pallor of skin, distribution of fat, and the contrasting white of knuckle and of joints and bone. Uh, little bit of a run on, but it works. I stand back and marvel at the marbled flesh, the varying colors of pinks, reds, and deep maroons. Of the pallor of skin, distribution of fat, and the contrasting white of knuckle and of joints and bone. And yeah, and I mean it's very clear. I think you can get away with that. It runs on a little bit, but I think you can get away with that. And then this is good, right? This is clear. We're getting a little bit of the plot. I love that. My BBQs are renowned. I would so with description, I think I would still go barbecues. Um yeah, I think you generally want to stay away from abbreviations like that unless it's like a character is saying something. My barbecues are renowned, but I'd have to check on what the standards are for them. And I love this, right? You get a clear vision that he's basically like he's at the grill putting on a show for all of his friends and family. Well, secretly he's cutting at poor what's his face. I mean, I guess not poor. He was a cheater of some type. But the great thing that works about this is because we're reading the story through the point of anti-hero. So the extent of how badly this guy actually wronged him is still kind of hard to say, right? Because our point of view character is that we have a very skewed perspective. So it's well done. Whether or not he deserved to be cut up and filleted is to be determined, but very, very well done. And then you use like coyly, like, yeah, that works. It's just you throw in these little word choices that really help to drive his character. No capitalizing words. Good food, shared well in a late suburban evening. Only one neighbor is absent. Yeah, so I mean, basically, our anti-hero serial killer kills out of a question of morality. Mhm. Tony basically hooked up with the wives, and he deserves to. Sorry, Tony. Better no cheating. Tony, no cheating. This is the price you get to pay. You end up filet mignon. And this is just so like I love when we have anti-hero characters, any time that you can find ways to have the to use word choice that is let me rephrase. This is what Dexter the show did so well. Dexter is put into a lot of moments where he says things and he has perspectives that we know is serial killer and we get the serial killer vibe, but from a non serial killer, they're like, oh yeah, he's human. And this is what you do really well in this moment. He's flipping over the grill, but then his interiority is perhaps in a far more palatable way for all concerned. That's great. That's awesome. I love that. And then we got the wife, right? So clearly the wife is like a kind of a pushover. Well, and then she's dabbing her lips with the napkin. Well, it isn't the first time she will have had a piece of Tony inside her, is it? I almost think that like from if you were going to expand upon this, Zach, I almost think that you could have had left us questioning, did she cheat with Tony? Well, it isn't the first time she had Tony inside her. I would almost do that. Or actually, it it isn't the first time she had it isn't the first time she had a piece of Tony inside her. Inside her, or is it? If I were to expand upon this, I would do this because this would leave foreshadowing, and then that. I mean, I think the line works honestly, but I think what I would do is I would do it as foreshadowing, and then I would expand upon the plot with the wife because that's interesting. Of like, oh, who's he going to kill next? Did the wife wrong him? Is the wife going to end up like chop suey? Like who ends up next? So yeah, really great work, man. That was a fun little piece. Ah, yeah, that was great. That was fun. It was awesome. Thanks for sharing. Always love flash fiction. You definitely have a really good knack for writing and a knack for creating with character development, being able to do that in such a short period of time. All right, let's see what we got here. Let me just hop back into the comments. Perfect. And Bethany, I hope you're able to get some good feedback for that section you were working on with your story. It sounds like a bunch of the other writers were giving some good suggestions here. I know, right? Atomic. I thought the same thing. He's fascinated with precision, but he doesn't care if there's like blood smeared on him. I thought that was really clever because that was intentional. Hannibal's barbecue. I for some reason I thought like it would be called like title Hannibal's dinner party. Dinner with Lecter. Ooh, okay. So the flash fiction had a word limit. Very, very good to know. Absolutely. Um, yeah. I was like, that makes sense. It's hard when you're trying to balance out storytelling with a word limit like that. Um, yeah, I mean, you could have added a couple pieces of dialogue, but that's a hard one for sure. That ends up becoming more of a stylistic choice and like what feels right in the moment. Let's say, and then Eli, it looks like you were touching on the first section. Within my gloved hand, streaked with blood. Within my gloved hand, streaked with blood. Oh yeah, that was way better. Like I don't even know why I didn't think about that. I was like, within my gloved hand, like I have to pull that back up. Within my gloved hand, within my gloved hand, streaked with blood. Yeah, that's way better. I get the Jack the Ripper vibe too a little bit, don't I? Absolutely. And what's interesting, Zach, is your style. This flash fiction has a very poetic style to it. It has a very poetic undertone with your use of word choice. And I think like you should incorporate like more of your poetic style because that's unique. Like if we had a story about a serial killer, but it was told through poetry, I don't know if I've seen that done before, but that'd be pretty awesome. Check this out. Mhm. Absolutely agreed, Bethany. Poetry just adds a different sense of depth, right? So poetry to me is like music. Um, when you have poetry or rhyming structures or anything that's not that's of a different style, you're basically pointing the reader's attention to like, hey, I want you to feel this theme. I want you to feel a certain way. Love poetry. Yeah, Zach, definitely feel free to submit a poem at some point. Would absolutely love to check out one of your pieces of poetry. I think that'd be super awesome. You know me well, Bethany. Depth in 11 is a must. Or dragons. I was like, yes, dragons. Completely agree. Tony sounds more rump roast than filet mignon. Yep, I think we can agree with that. Tony, I mean, apparently it sounds like the neighbors and the wife were enjoying the taste of Tony. I was like, there's another chapter title, A Taste of Tony. Like totally setting up thinking that's going to be a sexual thing, but it's actually just Tony was being eaten and cannibalized. I know the irony. It was meant to be, Bethany. We went from first aid to meaty puns. uh Happy to help, Bethany. I'm glad that was able to help you out, my friend. I know you've been working on that little section. Hmm. Yeah, dinner with Tony. I think that would be a good one as well. Dinner with Tony. Hmm. Okay. Excellent. taste taste of Tony. I know. I was like, I think that could be clever. Okay, excellent. So let's get right on to the next excerpt. We got Sean. Sean, I got your script up next. Torrent by Sean Spence. So we got our script of the day. And we are clearly in like the serial killer vibe because this is perfect because we're going back into our thriller about our serial killer. So perfect segue. And we get to play around with the script, which will be wonderful. So let me pull yours up, Sean. I think this time I've got your script. I pulled it up in Final Draft. I think that seemed to work the best for me. Okay. Perfect. So I get yours pulled up, Sean. Let's see, Torrent. What do I want to highlight? So once again, quote of the day. Keep your quotes coming. Keep your comments coming. I have, how many quotes do I got right now? It looks like I have about 10 that have stood out to me. So keep your comments coming. I'm going to be picking a comment that stands out at the end of the stream. So keep them coming, keep them clever, and keep them interesting. And the quote of the day will be added to a quote of the day leaderboard that's coming with a community option that I'm currently developing. So stay tuned and keep commenting, my fellow writers. So we got the quote of the day. And then once again, make sure to submit your story submission to Kaufman at the-creative-ghost.com if you want your story read either for today, although I think I might be reaching the end of my voice, but we're going to try. We're going to keep pushing. And for tomorrow or for next week's stream. All right. So I feel good about that. And then let me add buy me a coffee. So actually this is something I'd really appreciate. So as y'all know, I quit my day job end of last year to start this writing business full time. I'm working on trying to build out as many sources of income as possible so I can keep doing this for a living. I found a lot of success in a lot of different areas, but I'm still a new business owner. So any and all revenue helps. I'm going to keep this stream completely free for the end of time because I love doing the free readings, the free excerpts as a community resource. Most editors would charge for this type of service. I will not because I want to bring in more writers and build a writing brand. What would really help them would be buying me a coffee. It's like a tipping thing until I get the tipping through YouTube in the future. It's a tipping thing I'm sure all y'all have heard. So I would appreciate it. Free tip, free cup of coffee if you appreciate anything that I've done. Much appreciated. Buy me a coffee. You can do it in small increments. That's the link. And it lets you buy little cups of coffee. The way that I look at it is you could go out to fast food. You could go out and buy a Starbucks and you'll spend about anywhere between $5 to $20. You could tip me one coffee, $5, and the value that you get out of this will last for much longer. So I would appreciate it. I dropped the link in the comment, and y'all are awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So I wanted to just call out to the Buy Me a Coffee, and let me now pull up your script, Sean. Okay. So let me throw this up on the ticker down at the bottom. Okay. Excellent. And so once again, for those of you who haven't read Sean's previous work or who haven't joined in on some of the previous story and critique shows, we've gone through about, I want to say we've gone through about a third of the script, maybe 40, 50%. This script is a thriller. We're following two police officers, one who's been wrong and who's the asshole, the other one who's like new, not new, he's new to the area, but he's kind of like the peppy, nicer one of the two, as they're hunting down our serial killer, Miss Summers, a creepy old lady with a knack for carving. So let's see what we got today. I got 20 minutes on the clock, and let's dig into it. I was like, let me make sure Grammarly is off. All right. Un momento. There we go. All right. So I am all set, and I got 20 minutes on the clock. Torrent excerpt pages 45 through 51 by Sean Spence. Interior, Miss Summers' house, grandson's bedroom, later. Miss Summers spins around on a swivel chair in the middle of the room, taking it all in. An unmade bed with Spider-Man sheets, a young man's clothes tossed on the ground, a tiny desk with a laptop, a baseball bat propped against the desk, a PlayStation attached to a 32-inch TV. Miss Summers stops the chair from turning, facing the laptop on the desk. A Google search window is already open on the Murderpedia page of David Allen Gore, followed by one of his quotes. I have never felt an emptiness of self like I did right then, and I will never forget that feeling. She pulls herself to the desk and slides her finger over the mousepad. She opens another browser where the Google page automatically loads. She types in the search bar, Police Wallace Super Cop. Links to news article fill the screen. Dayton Devil's cannibal spree finally over. Officer Wallace, Super Cop, kills serial killer. Wife's mutilated body found on kitchen floor. Farewell ceremony for Officer Wallace and his family. The last article shows two photos, one of Billy and his children with the caption, Officer Wallace with his two sons, Brad and Eric. The second photo is of a young black man in his 20s. Miss Summers stares at the black man in the photo before typing Dayton Devil into YouTube's address bar, which garners many videos. She clicks on a video from a news station where a newscaster, 30s, dressed in a pressed Oxford shirt and blue tie, sits behind his news desk, frozen on the computer screen. Miss Summers clicks the play button. Breaking news. Today, after entering his home, William Wallace, an off-duty officer with the local police department, found the serial killer, the Dayton Devil, in his kitchen after his wife was mutilated on the floor. As the culprit tried to flee, Officer Wallace shot him in the back. Because of the Stand Your Ground law recently enacted in 2021, no charges have been filed against the officer. A video of Billy with his arms around Brad and Eric exiting their house plays while the newscaster continues to talk. Miss Summers hits the pause button just as Billy's eyes catch the camera. Miss Summers stares at the screen, lost in Billy's gaze coming from the laptop. You're right, Billy. You're definitely no super cop. A knock on her door breaks her concentration from the video. She stands and peers outside the window onto the front yard, seeing nothing. Slowly, this scar-faced man steps off the porch and into the yard, peering into the front windows. Miss Summers moves quickly away from her upstairs window. Seconds later, glass breaking can be faintly heard downstairs, followed by the unlatching of door locks. Miss Summers grabs the bat next to the desk before exiting the room. Interior Miss Summers' house foyer continuous. The scar-faced gang member enters the house and shuts the door. He kicks the glass from the broken doorway as he steps further into the house. Yoo-hoo! Anyone home? Interior Miss Summers' house living room continuous. The scar-faced man saunters into the living room, observing all the taxidermy animals on the shelves. Although clothes lay on the floor, it is far from a mess. Who's there? Just a friendly member of the local neighborhood watch. Miss Summers comes down the stairs, bat raised over her shoulder. You know, you should probably have that front door looked at. It's way too easy for someone to break in. What do you want? Well, to begin with, I have an issue with being watched, especially when I'm conducting business. The scar-faced man steps closer to Miss Summers as she stands her ground at the bottom of the stairs, his facial scar jogging her memory. You do look familiar. See, that's where I think you might be mistaken, I believe, and correct me if I am wrong, but you've never fucking seen me. Oh, I know. You're with that sorry excuse of a gang. What's its name? You've got balls for an old lady. No, that's not it. It's less threatening than that. He scopes the tattoos on the man's body, noticing one that stands out on his right forearm belonging to the local gang. I know. Isn't that the tattoo for the Skull Brotherhood? Rumor has it they're a bunch of pansies. You better watch how you speak to me, lady. I think the last thing you want is to piss me off. Tell me, how else would you describe a bunch of lowlifes who go around harassing the neighborhood, shooting each other over a stupid turf war, killing innocent people? I would say they're living the American dream. Miss Summers grips her bat tighter and tighter as the scar-faced man steps even closer. And not just killing anyone, but my lovely grandson, an innocent young boy, shot dead in my own front. He was my blood, my heart, my soul, and being gunned down by a worthless piece of human flesh. Yeah, I would call that person a weakling, a panty waste, a pansy. Look, bitch, I don't think you want to fuck with me. Bitch? Excuse me, the name is Miss Summers, you piece of shit. As the scar-faced man reaches behind his back for his gun, Miss Summers swings the bat and connects with the side of his head. He slams to the ground unconscious. Miss Summers stands over the motionless body. She lifts the bat over her head and freezes. Her whole body shivers as she fights back her anger and tears. Lowering her weapon, she begins to wipe the blood on the bat onto her dress. See what you made me do using profanity. I'm so much better than that. I'm so much better than you. Miss Summers takes the top of the bat and pushes on the chest of the scar-faced man. His breathing is shallow and labored. Oh, the plans I have for you. Interior diner, late morning the next day. Billy and Nick sit in a cramped two-person booth. Nick is eating lunch while Billy stares out the window, lost in thought. Begin flashback. Interior Wallace's old house dining room. Billy and Diana sit alone at the dinner table, their food surrounded by crumpled tinfoil around their plates. Interior Wallace's old house kitchen. Billy kneels over Diana's body, laying motionless on the kitchen floor. Blood surrounds Diana's hair as it drains from her skull. Interior Wallace's old house hallway. The black man from the previous news article runs down the hallway. His back flinches as a gunshot enters. Billy screams in agony as he falls to his knees. And flashback. Interior diner late morning continuous. Billy continues to stare out the diner window as the dripping rain obscures his view outside. Nick watches him for a while. See, it's not that hard. I'm sorry, what? Sitting in silence. Yeah, I guess. I did my homework on you. You wouldn't be a good cop if you didn't. What did you find out? Besides the super cop stuff, nothing. You got one hell of a publicist. Billy smiles. Look, I'm sorry about your wife. I can honestly say I'm not sure what I would have done if I was in your shoes. I probably would have shot him more than once. You ever been married? We're talking about you, not me. We're going to have to talk about you at some point. I liked it better when you were comatose. Nick shovels in another forkful of breakfast as Billy takes a sip of his coffee. End excerpt. Sean, my friend, that was a really good excerpt. That was really, really good. I think this was my favorite excerpt out of the past couple excerpts I've seen, simply because we get the action, we get Miss Summers' character development, which I love. We get more of our serial killer. But you've done a good job of making it sparse up to this point, which I agree with. So in this section specifically, I love what you did with Miss Summers. I love the focus that we finally get Billy's, we finally get the specifics of Billy's backstory, which is great. We've touched upon it previously, but I think this works. I think, let me see. I think just the biggest opportunities for it is just cleaning up some more of the structural stuff than anything else. I think the plot is very straightforward and the plot works very well. So let me pull up here. So once again, plot, your plot is awesome. No problems with the plot. Character development was on point this time. Really good. Especially even though we only get a brief excerpt of the Billy and Nick scene. I loved it. It was great. I really like the sparseness of their conversation works, because this is the first time in the script that Nick shows an interest in Billy, or that he's specifically saying out loud that he's showing an interest, and that is interesting. That is very, very interesting. So I think you did a really good job with that. Excellent. All right, so let's dig into it. So this first part was, yeah, and okay, so this first section makes sense since that was the son's or the grandson. I forgot if it was the son or the grandson, but that's the room, so that actually makes sense. And I like the quote, Sean, just from a structure, or just from a formatting perspective, doing a quote, doing it like this, and then doing the italics kind of throws me off a little bit. And that's just from a pure reading perspective. I think because you've made it clear that this is a news article, I don't think you need to do this in italics. But yeah, I was like, I don't think you need to do this in italics, in all honesty. But I would double check. I know there's a specific way to format it. And I like this because you clearly want to highlight on this. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's good. You know what, actually, Sean, what I would do is I would start the scene on her looking on the quote. So I would actually start it like this. This is what, and I think this would actually pull in producers, at least for this scene. I would start like this, with on a computer screen. Let's see. I think I would start it like this. Google search window, and I mean, like, you could fix the description, is opened up on Murderpedia. I would start with the quote, because the quote is interesting. And this is just, I'm doing this real quick. I would start with this and then go into the scene. I mean, wait, from a script perspective, I mean, you need a Summer spins around. Yeah, I'm thinking from a script. Yeah, I think from a reading perspective, I think starting with the quote would actually work better. But from a description, yeah, I would do this. I think this is just more interesting. And then you can have her spinning around in the chair. And then she researches the Billy thing, Officer Wallace. Yeah, and I'm kind of just thinking, I think it's just more, yeah, and I would just check for formatting, Sean. I think there's just a lot of formatting things on here that I'm just not sure about. And then even this, I think you blew this up. And I would just say, make sure it's all the same font. It's all the same font, the same typography, and the same size. That could be why it's throwing me off a little bit. So all same font and typography. Because I think because it's a script, I don't think you have to call it out with bolds and italics. I think with the script, you just have to make sure it's formatted correctly. I believe, but I would just check that just to be safe. This is good. And then we're doing the articles of Billy and Officer Wallace and the Billy and the two sons, which is good. And this is good. Yeah, so we're basically getting the backstory, which is great. The Dayton Devil is really the highlight of this. Interesting. And I like this. I like that this is the moment that ends with Billy, and then she's broken. Then it breaks up with this thing that's about to happen with the guy who breaks in. And I think this is another formatting thing. I think the way this would be a knock on her door breaks her. Oh, because she's looking outside the window. Okay. I think the way to do this is she stands and peers outside the window onto the front yard, seeing nothing. And then I think you would cut to I think you would do an exterior cut. Quick. Oh, no, because she's only looking. Miss Summers, glass breaking can be faintly heard. Because you don't want the point of view to be on him. I think to drive the suspense, I don't even think you show the scar-faced man until he's downstairs. I think you have her look down, and it's an interesting subversion that now she's like, oh, something. It's like I want you to set up for the audience that, oh, someone's breaking into her, but clearly it feels like she's planned all this. Like she's planned everything. She's the mastermind. But I want the audience to think, oh, somebody's about to attack her. Like what's about to happen? And I think by not showing him in this initial part would further build suspense. She grabs the bat. That's good. And then this is why I would have him enter, be the first appearance of the scar-faced man. This is good. I would cut this dialogue. I have an issue with being watched, especially when I'm conducting business. That just for wordiness. Scarface man, as she stands, facial scar jogging her memory. But I mean, she like has. So this is just actually we don't. It's clear that she knows who he is. Scarface man steps closer as she stands her ground at the bottom of the stairs. I would do that because her dialogue says that he looks familiar. I believe in correct me, but you've never fucking seen me. Good. The language here works well because the language is clear to his character and that he's like a thug. That's like perfect. This is actually a really good example. Let me just throw this as a shout out. This is a really good example of how do you do language of cussing in a way that feels believable. He's been set up as a gang member. Of course, he's going to be cussing. And the fact that it gets to her is actually very well done. Okay, I know that you're with, sorry. That's less threatening. This is all good. And I love this. Like the fact that the way that she like starts calling him out is just like, it's just really good. I would just edit this down a little bit. It's just a little wordy. I get the point, but just edit it down in terms of wordiness. The grandson bit. I wouldn't have her say bitch because she's about to cuss the piece of shit anyways. Excuse me. Look, bitch, I don't think you want to fuck with me. The name, this would actually be stronger if you're like, the name is Miss Summers, you piece of shit. I think that would make that stronger. Look, bitch, I don't think you want to fuck with me. The name is Miss Summers, piece of shit. And I think that would actually be stronger. This is good. Sends over the motion of this body. All right, I have to ask this. For an old lady, how much strength does an old lady have? I don't actually know. Does an old lady have enough strength to knock out a big buff gang member with a hit to the bat in one swing? Believability question. I'm not sure. I'll pose this to the group. But overall, though, I love it. I don't actually think that you need that last bit of the section. I think this is clear. See what you made me do using profanity. This is a clear end. That's a better ending like that. The flashback scene, I would. And Sean, this is more for like a reader's perspective, whoever you end up pitching this to. I wouldn't cut to 3 different scenes. I would just do one flashback in one scene and then just have us see the moment. Is over Diana's body. Sit alone, their food surrounded by crumpled tin foil around their plates. I see, because it's essentially a montage. The flashback is a montage. So I would go about this 2 ways, Sean. I would clarify that this began a flashback montage because a montage is a very specific thing. So I would clarify this as a montage specifically, or I would change these into one scene. Okay, that makes sense because you want it to basically follow his natural thought. All right, if that's the case, tear dinner late morning. Yeah, because you literally want that to be as a result of what he's looking at because he's looking out the window. Okay, that makes sense. You want it to be thoughts. If that's the case, yeah, I mean it's. I have to think about that because technically technically the scenes are happening because he's thinking about it. You want it to be understandable that these things are happening because he's thinking about it, and then you cut to him looking out the window. I get that. Begin flashback montage. Yeah, you know what I would do actually to make this easier? Just because it's like the formatting. And then the way you do a montage is then you would do it as a bullet point list. And then instead of doing the setup for each scene, I think you do it like this. And I think you just list it as a bullet point. And then you're basically begin flashback montage. And I think you still set it up as interior. I think this is how you do it. It's been a while since I've done a montage. Billy and Nick sit in a cramped 2-person booth. Nick is eating lunch while Billy stares out the window lost in thought because you've set that up with Billy. Begin flashback montage. That's clear. And then I think you do the setup. I would do one interior Billy's house, whatever. That's where you do the setup. And then I think you do it as a bullet point list. I'm pretty sure that's the standard for montages, but it's been a while since I've done one. So I would just double check the structuring or the right way to structure it. But I think that just makes it easier to read, in all honesty. Because then it's not like, then basically like let the film crew deal with how they want to film it. They know that the important part is they have to hit the beats. I think that's essentially how montages work, and that would make that flow better. Billy, good. Their scene is good. See, it's not that hard. Beautiful, wonderful. Yeah, I guess I did my homework on you. Yeah, and then the whole Nick Billy scene is great. I don't have any comments on it. It's pretty straightforward. I love the interest in Billy and that Nick's interest in Billy. And then of course Nick's line, I liked it better when you were comatose. True, Nick. I always love Nick. Nick's always my favorite character. I mean, actually, I think I like Miss Summers and then Nick, but that was really good. Perfect. And that's all that I got for you, my man. Overall, really great work. I'm interested. I'm hooked. I want to see how this story is going to end now. We need to know how is Miss Summers going to survive? Is she going to get caught? maybe she's gonna skewer Billy. She's gonna kill Billy, or she's gonna capture Billy. Like by this point, it's like, all right, Miss Summers is clearly gonna capture Billy. She doesn't like him. And then Nick's gonna have to come in and save the day. Or maybe she'll kill Nick. That would be interesting too. But I guess we'll find out. So really good work, Sean. I'm super excited and definitely enjoying your script. Looking forward to the future excerpts. Of course, my friend. I always have love. I always enjoy doing the script readings. Awesome. And then let me just hop into what I got for comments. We got some really funny comments here. Atomic. It needs more slime, Sean. We hadn't even started the piece yet, but Atomic's like, it needs more slime. I know, right? We never feel sorry for the gang members. We felt sorry for the gang member this time, but it was like well done. That's a way of showing that it's very well done, man. The skull bro, gotta go, skull bro. Scarface ain't gonna make it. Scarface is about to be skewered into the opening hook for the entire script. We got a little like interrogation scene with Miss Summers and this victim, and I'm like, ooh, that's not looking too good for Scarface over here. I absolutely agree. The dialogue's really strong. By this point in the script, Sean, it's clear that you know your characters very well. You know the world building. You know the story. And I mean, what that was pages 45 through 51. Usually, thrillers tend to be around the 100-page mark. So I mean, we're definitely well over halfway. I mean, right now, 45 through 51. So we're probably at. I'm trying to think. I was like, I don't think we're at midpoint yet. We might have already hit midpoint. It depends on how long the story is. We might have already hit midpoint. I'm not sure yet, but we're definitely in Act 2 right now for sure. I know, Sean, you're getting from everybody. Miss Summers is definitely a badass. Yeah, Bethany, if you ever want to check out the previous excerpts, Sean's first story was in the third episode of the Story and Critique show, and then he submitted a different story excerpts from periodically. Absolutely, if you want to go back and check them out. Ooh, I love that. The quote is from the previous scene that Billy quoted to Miss Summers. Because I didn't read this back to back, that makes sense. That's actually really clever. I absolutely love it. That's really, really clever. Margin. Yeah, I think starting with the quote will make it stand out even more. But I didn't realize, I forgot that Billy said that. That makes me like that quote even more. Yeah, I think it's agreed, Sean, that everybody here in the chat likes Miss Summers. I think Miss Summers might be like our favorite antagonistic serial killer of the day. Serial killer. Very fun little serial killer. Oh man. Today's episode of the Sinister Story Critique Show. Welcome to the Sinister Story Critique Show. Probably maybe when we get closer to Halloween, or maybe I'll do like a horror themed vibe. I specifically don't brand this as a specific genre, so I don't so I can open it up to all submission types. But we do get a mix. I mean, as y'all know, we get a mix of, I want to say fantasy is the highest. I would say fantasy, horror / thriller, and then romance and nonfiction tend to be fantasy sci-fi put in the top. We get fantasy sci-fi, horror thriller, and then nonfiction / romance. Yeah, this is actually a good question. How old is Miss Summers specifically, Sean? I forgot to ask. How old is Miss Summers? Because I'm challenging her strength of like, does a little old lady have enough strength to be able to knock a gang member? That's the only thing I would challenge. What a cool twist. And Miss Summers is a man. Miss Summers, I'm like Mr. Summers, dun dun dun, or Miss Summers is possessed. Uh, you guys cracked me up. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so it's 106 pages. Yeah, so we're not even at midpoint yet, or we're probably about to get to midpoint. That makes sense. Awesome. Well, once again, really good work and really great comments. Hey, what's up, Vaughn? Welcome to the stream, my man. Thanks for dropping by. So we have a really, really great community. We had some really great comments today. Where are we at? So I would say what we're gonna do, I need to hop in my writing sprint. So I got to get 20 minutes on the clock because I got to get my story with Last Scarecrow in. Where am I at? Oh, I'm at with my Pebble. I'm at with my fairy character. All right, I'm going to write a horror scene with my fairy character. Let's have fun and write a horror scene. Y'all have inspired me. So I'm going to hop into Last Scarecrow, 20 minutes, 20-minute sprint, and then I'll touch upon my challenge of the day, the quote of the day game. So I've been adding your comments. Your 20-minute sprint, or this 20-minute sprint, is your last chance to throw up some cool comments, and I'll pick the winner of the most clever or most interesting or most well-told comment of the stream, and then it will be added to the launch of my leaderboards for the quote of the day as my community tool is launched soon. Awesome. So make sure you keep commenting, and I'll throw that there. And let's see. Let's do a subscribe. If you've enjoyed the stream, make sure to follow and subscribe. I do this live stream experience every single day. Today has been a phenomenal show. Your guys' energy has been so great. The feedback for the stories has been, I love it. And I know every writer who submitted today has gotten exponential value, not just from myself, but from y'all as well. So thank you so much for that. If you're following and subscribe, you'll be alerted when I go live every single day. 163 days of streaming back to back so far out of my 1-year challenge. So stay tuned. Okay, so I got Last Scarecrow all queued up. I got a writing sprint. And let's see, let's drop that. And then got to pull up Last Scarecrow. All right. And then I got here the horror. So I'm kind of in the middle of a horror arc with Last Scarecrow. And we are at our pixie. We're pretty far into my story. Almost at what, 80%, 78%? Here we go. So I got 20 minutes on the clock. Feel free to join along with me if you need to get some writing in, or you can sit back, relax, and I will write vicariously for the both of us. We're going to write an interesting horror scene with Pebble. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. So let's see what we got. Woo. Awesome. Vaughn, thanks for sharing. I appreciate it, my man. Okay, so I got 20 minutes on the clock. I'm going to throw up some music. A little fantasy music. Okay. I got 20 minutes on the clock. I am all set. And it's time to write now. Okay, wonderful. Really great work. Wonderful, wonderful. And let's pull that up. Great sprint. All right. It felt good. I was actually having fun with Pebble. I've realized, ah, so the further I get into Last Scarecrow with Pebble, I realized that consistently throughout this, she's had this kind of like ability that sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. And it's kind of came to life later in the story of this doll that she's always had that she kind of uses as like a channeling. And I've really started digging into that in the back end of the story because I think it's interesting. And there's an element there that's really going to tie into the rest of her character arc. And I think the fact that she still has the ruby stone, which the ruby stone is basically like a gemstone that they've been carrying for a while throughout the story and really trying to figure out how to use it. And now it's coming back into predominance as she's now she's confronted this doll that's now coming to life and is about to attack her. So we're going to get to play around with Pebble in our next writing sprint. Okay, so let me pull that back up. I hope you're able to get some writing in yourself. Really fun, really great stuff. It looks like Bethany, it looks like you're working on some character power stuff, which is super cool. Now is a good time. So let's hop into the quote of the day. So I have checked, I've been highlighting quotes that stood out to me throughout the stream. It looks like I have about 10 to 12 quotes here. So let me think. Let's see what I got. There's a couple of ones that I thought were super funny. Just some ones that I wanted to highlight because they were advertising the show in a comical way. I thought the book one by Zach was super funny. This one was great. Some ones that have stood out. Atomic, I loved your need more slime. I think if you're ever unsure what to do with a story, it just needs more slime. That I agree with. Lewis, I loved your welcome to this sinister story critique show. I feel like we have like the Halloween edition here. We had some great jokes. Marta, what do you call a person without a body and without the nose? Nobody knows, but writing mode. I loved your edit. I loved your critique. Writing mode versus editing mode is definitely a thing. Getting into the creative flow and analytical thinking are generally opposite states of mind. That is a valuable piece of advice. Absolutely love it. Let's see. Bethany. Let's see. Mm-hmm. I loved that you had a call out, Bethany, that single dads can master the multitasking. Let's hope that they can master the multitasking. I think that was a very great call out. Zach had a great comment. I love this. Everything said is constructive, not destructive. However, I think the quote that wins the day, purely this time based off cleverness, is from Lewis's quote, Lewis J. Mansaw. What do you call a writer addicted to editing? Addicted. I think that was the most clever one that stood out of the ones that I caught. So this is the one that I'm going to dedicate as our first quote of the day. Lewis, if you're still here in the stream, or you watch this on the replay, great work. I love that quote. I'm going to be adding it to a leaderboard for our Hall of Quotes. Once I have the community thing set up, I'll start advertising it. Probably still got about another week and a half, depending on how long it takes me to get through it, but it's coming. So I'll do more segments of the quote of the day soon. I actually love that. I love trying to think of what are ways that I can add like a game-like element or ways that I can add more like more things to do in the comments, in the community, because I think it's fun. I enjoy it. And I want to get to a point where like every day we can have like such an active chat community. So thank you all for participating. It was super awesome, super sweet. I had so much fun in it. And even though there's always the chance I missed out on certain things, I missed out on certain quotes because I'm doing it all myself. I'm sure at some point I'll hire help so I can keep better track of my comments. But overall, very, very fun. I like you guys gave me some like clever quotes, clever comedic things throughout the stream, and it was really great. At Bethany, make writing great again. I almost used that as a thing, actually. I almost did use that as a thing, Atomic, where I was gonna be like, I'm gonna try to make editing or make stories fun again. And then my friend's like, no, it's gonna give too much of a political vibe. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Oh man. Let's see. Do the top 3. Yes, awesome. I did a couple that I really liked. I feel like I think I did like a top like 6. I mean, granted, there's probably well over like 200 comments in this. So the fact that I could choose like 5 or 6, I had narrowed it down to 12, and then I showed the top 5, 6. And Lewis, you definitely won. And Bethany, and the fat lady has sung. Bethany, I like that. But just to clarify, not Jared. Jared is not a fat lady. Really great work, Lewis. Lewis, make sure you keep coming back to the streams. Once I have the community thing ready, I'll announce it. And I'm going to be listing it. You'll be the first winner. In the future, I'm going to think through what type of like things I can offer. But for now, I'm doing it as kind of a recognition piece. I'll be doing quote of the day more. I think it was super. I have fun with these sorts of things. So that was awesome. Great work. Great work. I'll get justice when we do Hermes. Ooh, yes. And Hermes will actually be making a return as part of our character, as part of the community thing that I'm working on. So we'll actually be coming back to Hermes as well. I have a really cool plan for Hermes, but I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So TBD. Let's see, getting my submission all spot edited for next time. Absolutely. Eli, want to read more of the story. Bethany, looking forward to reading more about your blood magic. I'm not do the blood magic. I'm keeping Jared on suspense. I want to learn more about this blood magic as we get the evil. Whoa. Love it, Bethany. Absolutely love it. As I look forward and I look towards creative writing on the morrow, super exciting. Tomorrow's episode of the Creative Right Now podcast is going to be called The Secret to Publishing Your First Novel. I have a really cool guest lined up. Let me throw up the screen. Let's see. The secret. So here's the link. Here's the link to the event. Let me throw it up. The Secret to Publishing Your First Book. I'm going to be sitting down with the Writing Ghost, with Yasmin from the Writing Ghost. She has so much experience with helping writers get their books published. Very, very successful. And we are going to be having some great conversations. So make sure you're tuning in tomorrow for the Creative Right Now podcast at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, same time as today. And I'll see you there. It's going to be a great episode. The event is already set up, so you can go check it out. Check out the event link over on Facebook or YouTube, and it is going to be a blast. So come join us tomorrow for another episode. I want to say we are in episode 6 of the Creative Right Now podcast. It will be a blast. And if you're looking for something to watch next, let's say you had a great time today, but you're like, hey, you know what? I want to watch something like that. I listed in the playlist, in the YouTube playlist below, the reading sprints for storytellers that highlights some of the most popular story and critique show episodes. So go check it out down in the YouTube description if you want to check out some of our previous episodes and you're looking for something to watch next. Lewis, just be extra nice to me when I send my story to the show. You're like, all right, Lewis, I'm going to be extra nice. I'm going to read the first line back. This is the most amazing thing I've ever read in my entire life, Lewis. Most amazing thing. Bravo. I'll just give you claps the whole time. But I'm definitely looking forward to digging into your guys' excerpts for sure. Hey, that goes for me too. Well, I mean, Bethany didn't win, so according to Atomic, Bethany is getting the brutally honest for Bethany campaign. Bethany is gonna have her fidget toys ready. So Lewis gets to be extra nice. Well, Bethany, I guess you're just gonna have to win the next quote of the day segment. Oh man, I'm not sure how often I'm trying out the quote of the day. I think for now I'm just trying it out on weekends since I know weekends are pretty active. Quote of the do I want to do that on the podcast? I'll think about if I'm going to do quote of the day on the podcast or not. I don't want to pull away from the interview. So, man, you guys have been fun today. I've had an absolutely phenomenal time. Thank you again for submitting your stories. We had some really great stories today. Really great range. We had between fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and everything in between. Great conversations, great community, and great chat. But as we approach the 3.5 hour mark, that, my friends, is all that I got for you today. Don't forget, tap that like button on your way out. Let me know that you got value and help me show the algorithm that this is going to be the greatest live streaming writing community. We will get there. We could do that. So maybe Atomic, that's a great call out. We could do that as like maybe doing like a quote of the week for each segment, because that would technically be like the Kaufman writes. I'd be open to that. I'm going to continue to think on it. I'm kind of going to look at data and feedback. But it sounds like everyone really enjoyed it. And I always ask myself, if I do a game or I do any type of competition or contest, what do I do? What type of value do I provide that makes people want to engage, or if people are more engaging for the experience? So that's absolutely a great idea. I'm going to think on that. Awesome. And that is all that I got for you today, creative writers. Tap that like button. I appreciate you. And this brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.